What's up, ladies and gents? Owen, you can unmute. What's up, guys? We'll just hop on in. Let's get it. What's up, guys? Hey, just as a heads up, this is a new stream for sure. It's too cold. It's just too cold. I tried to fix the bit rate. It's just fucking freezing. It is 26 degrees. And for San Diego,
it's 35 here.
Dog, it is 20. My computer says 26 degrees, and so it says good. It's gonna get better. The sun's coming up. It'll fix itself. Hi guys. What's poppin', team? We're good to start plugging. Let's get it. Everyone's coming in. Hi guys. Hello. Who's here now? Goonie. Noah. What's up, Noah? What's up, Solar Sandal? What's up, Dashing Septile? Obo. What's up? CB Marcus, the GOAT. Thank you so much. This would not be possible without you. Central, Clies, Zeke, Central. What's up, guys? Welcome to the BBR draft stream, season number 7. Holy shit. We've been doing this for quite some time. Holy balls. You know that I had someone told me that we've done 4 seasons? Was it 4 seasons now? 3 seasons? In a year.
In Gen 9?
In Gen 9.
Jesus. That's so funny.
Isn't that crazy? That's nuts. This is probably gonna be, not probably, it's gonna be the best season, just in regards to content, the decks, the competition. Got some freaking peeps. All right, team, as we just wait a couple of minutes just for people to come on in, I'll go and start talking. Welcome, like I said, to BBR season number 7. As you see on screen now is actually the draft order for this season. We spun this wheel as a community event. As you can see, the BBR logo has Santa on them. So if you guys aren't already, in the description below will be a link to the Discord server. Hop on in there if you're not already. If you're not, what you doing? Get in there now. You can mingle with us, hang out with all the BBR community, which is a massive community, which now is going to wake up because we've been asleep for a little bit. We're back for DLC number 2, the Indigo Disc. On screen now is the draft order. First overall pick is Gentleman Thomas. So I do want to go through all the coaches before we get started. We'll get a little bit of 411 on the draft, and then we'll go from there. And if you can leave a like on the stream, that would be fantastic. Help out your boy. That would be great. I would really, really appreciate it. But first overall pick, we have Gentleman Thomas. And second, we have John Jr. John Jr. is a returning coach, is one of the Eggmans, so I'm glad to have him back. We have Dr. Slacking has returned to BBR season 7. He was in season 6. And probably one of, if not the most entertaining coach out of all of us, just from being himself outside of Pokemon. So I'm super excited. He is excited to play draft, which is massive. What's up, Amaterasu? We have our co-host OG Albina back for season 7.
Hello.
You've been in every season since you've been in, so we're just glad to have you returning.
Besides season 1, season 2 through 7, baby. There's a lot of BBR on the channel.
I think the both of us, yeah, since season 2, since we came in. Because I'm right behind him. Your boy, coach of the SoCal Annihilation, coming on in at 5th overall pick. And then we have the first newbie. We have Champion Braden. Champion Braden, for those who don't know, is a hot asset, commodity out of TikTok. He has awesome TikTok content. He has a massive community on that platform, and he wants to make the jump over to YouTube. So far, so good. And one of the best ways to do it is to hop into one of the most well-known draft leagues in the community. So very happy to have Champion Braden. Number 7, actually, we weren't able to change this graphic. Today is where we have to announce. Unfortunately, we will not have Septile MC. Septile MC and the Arcaniners will not participate this season. We hope to have him for future seasons. But for this pick, we do return our veteran coach, the current reigning D-League champion, T-Row. T-Row showing up at 7th overall pick in his Columbus Cobalions. So we just haven't been able to fix this graphic because we just pulled that off of the announcements page. And we wanted to announce it today. So the draft will reflect on T-Row's draft because he did fully take over from the very first pick at pick 7. Pick 8, we have a vet coming back in. Was behind the scenes in the GBA, the most recent successful GBA season, from which Q the Costa Rican did indeed win overall. Behind the scenes, we had Aster J. So he's gonna be in the 8th overall pick, right dead middle. So good to have him. Big Gen 7 guy. You probably saw him in his logo quite a lot. So I'm very happy to have some veteran experience back in for BBR season 7. 9th overall, you love him, you know him. Dell, aka D Double. He's showing up back. He's one of the Eggmans as well, so I know he's one of the big guys. What's up, guys? Hi, everybody. I see you guys saying hi. Welcome to stream. Welcome to stream. We have a new coach for this season. We have Obo, who's coming in as the Morpeko United. Morpeko United. He, for those who don't know, he was in the APA as the Seattle Sandstorm. We have some nostalgia for this season. I really wanted him to be the Seattle Sandstorm, but hey, he's his own man. Smile. So he's the Morpeko United. Obo showing up in the 10th overall pick. You know, it is what it is. And then we have probably the Dark Knight of the BBR. We have Amel. Amel, you probably heard his name with Lord Envy. He's one of his main mockers, as well as Joey, Poke Aim MD. And amongst others, he just helps to, he's a good person just to come to in regards to draft overall. An incredibly bright mind, very lethal, and he has drafted a incredible team. This man went gung-ho. Amel's known for his wacky drafts, leaving points overall, not using all his points, picking low tiers, no high tiers, just something Amel related. In this season, he went all out. So we're terrified, but y'all are in for a treat. And then in the number 12th overall pick, we have a migrator over from the SPL. We have Viz, aka Visually or Visuali, coach of the Montreal Mimikyu, or the Mediterranean Mimikyu.
Mediterranean, yeah.
Mediterranean Mimikyu, which is probably the best logo outside of mine of this entire league.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
He did great in SPL. He's fired up for draft. And so he wanted to hop on over to the BBR, and we're happy to have him with open arms. So I'm very excited for you guys to see him participate this season. And then we have probably the biggest surprise of Draft League. This man got the bug. The Draft League scene came alive. Everyone's coming out of the woodwork. The timer has returned. We filled up an actual Pokedex for Generation 9, and all of a sudden the Draft League bug bit this guy right in the ass. Welcome to Panther2, who is the owner, commissioner, and creator, well, one half of him, of the American Pokemon Association, the APA. So very happy to have him aboard. If you guys were here in Generation 7, this man was a force. Panther is back.
That is Mr. Draft League, man.
That is Mr. Draft League. And then the man that's kind of pulling the strings in the back, we have the Dark Force and Amel, but the Dark Knight. You have CB Marcus, who's gonna actually participate in the main division for the BBR. My man is we wouldn't be here without him. CB Marcus is incredible. He's the one that helped us with the draft slides this season. So honestly, this stream wouldn't be possible without CB Marcus. He's also got his hands in the cookie jar for every single league in the platform of YouTube. So very happy to have him participate and compete here for the BBR Championship. Returning coach, we have Galvanate, coach of the New York Noibats. So good to have Nate back. I know that he has been studying up and he's ready to go, ready to run it back and make playoffs. He's ready to, he's fired up. Last but not least, we have our final returning coach, which is Keegan, who has incredible informative content. If you guys don't know who he is, Keegan is coach of the Olympic Flygon. So very happy to have him as well. This is a fire lineup, guys. This lineup, in regards to a competitive prowess, is probably one of the best that we've ever had. What are you looking forward to most out of this group, this bunch, out of all the ones we've had this time?
Oh, I'm so excited to see Panther play again, man. I obviously said it, but Panther's the one who got me to uploading and got me, you know, into the YouTube scene. He's been around for a long time, and I always refer to you as like California Panther, or like, I guess, you know, there is, you know, Carolina D-Ray in the sense that he's master marker. He built up the APA, built up the Draft League scene a ton back in the day. Stepped away during, wasn't playing much and things like that. So to see him back, for me personally, is very, very exciting. I'm really hoping we get to play this season, because not only is he like, you know, such an iconic figure in the Draft League scene, he's also really freaking good too. At least once in the past. We'll see if he can recapture some of that magic.
We're hoping that he is. He's been studying since the moment he got his Elgato back. He's been ready to go. He's been doing a bunch of homework, so I'm sure that he's just gonna come out the gate swinging. Alrighty, team. So now that we have a bunch of folks in, hi, hello, leave a like on the stream. I would really appreciate it. For this season, we are going to. Well, let me tell you this. For this season, we are running, we'll say this, terrestrialization. The number one topic in Generation 9 Draft League. How are we handling it? Since you made these rules, you want to break that down for the season before we hop on in here?
Yes. Now, I would like to preface, we made these rules based on coaches and what the coaches want to play. 'Cause it's important that our coaches play a format that they're excited to play. Would this be the format that I voted for? Not necessarily, but it is a very hot thing in Draft League to do low tier Terra. So that's what we'll be doing this season. It's the Pokemon that are 10 points and below, with exceptions. There are a few 11 pointers that we did allow to Terra, but I don't think actually any of them got Terra, because they're not great Terra captains. Typically like slower, bulkier stuff. I think we allowed like Torkoal to Terra, Clodsire, things like that. That didn't end up picked up, in that regards at the very least. But it's mostly 10 and below, with some Pokemon banned, mostly big setup threats. As setup plus Terra typically tends to be a little bit overwhelming. On top of that, we will be allowing our coaches to pick 2 Terra typings, just like last season. Whether that be Stab, Non-Stab, or Stellar, they can pick up to 2 typings that they can terrestrialize in throughout the season. They can change those Terra typings at the cost of a transaction, and I believe only one time throughout the season can they change their Terra captain in general. So we're kind of jumping on the low tier train that we realized in SPL and PPL last season and things like that, and we are sticking to the 2 typings for said Terra captains.
Yeah, it's seeing the little guys thrive is nice. So listen, I'm a man of democracy. We did indeed vote for this.
This season we are.
How this goes.
I'm a man of democracy for this month. I don't know about going forward. Y'all picked the wrong one. No more democracy.
That's hilarious. So yes, we are doing a low tier Terra, and it's only one Terra captain, which is something to note. That's a little bit different that the BBR is doing than other seasons and other leagues. One terrestrialized captain, 2 types. Can or doesn't have to be the actual stabs of the Pokemon, so that's kind of cool. It almost puts it in the same category as Mega Evolution in a way, so you just have that one guy that can change his form or change his type, so that way it's kind of similar on the lines, but it's just something that I like a lot. But this is a snake format draft. What is Draft League for those who are new? We have a bunch of new heads into Draft League because the scene has indeed grown. Pokemon Draft League is basically competitive Pokemon that has mixed in with fantasy sports. Draft League is where we have decided as an admin team which Pokemon are considered a high tier. The highest tier for this season is in 18 points. The lowest tier is 1. Things in the highest are things like Dragapult. Things in the lowest are things like Sunflora, right? So depending on the competitive prowess and viability is where those Pokemon were placed in point value. In this list that we just went through, each coach will have an opportunity to pick a Pokemon. Once the 16th person has picked, they will pick again to start the next round. So that's what it means by snake style format. After everyone has 9 to 12 Pokemon, we're gonna go at it. We have a full 8-week season plus playoffs, and it's gonna be a good time. It's basically watching sports married in with Pokemon, and these coaches are incredibly talented. It's gonna be a fun time. So if this is your first time in Draft League, welcome. This is your first time in the BBR, welcome. Without further ado, let's just hop on into it. The very first pick. You ready, Owen?
I am ready to go. Let's do it.
Let's get it. The very first overall pick was Gouging Fire. Surprise!
New toys, baby.
God, yeah. So Gouging Fire is cool. Gouging Fire is a brand new Pokemon. Fire and Dragon. It is Entei, but Triceratops with a shield on his forehead. He's the new toy. Oh my god, I want him. I want to try him. He's broken an OU Pokemon. It should translate into Draft League Smile. But what are your thoughts on Gouging Fire for the Draft League community as a first overall pick, knowing everything that's on the board?
So I get it, right? It's YouTube content league. I might have picked the same thing in Thomas's position myself. I think this Pokemon really thrives in a Terra setting when they can Terra, and we're not restricted to low tier Terras, whether it be Terra Fairy, Terra Ground, things like that. But it's still, regardless, incredibly solid. I think the main thing with this guy, and people aren't really like thinking about this when they think of it, if you look in Slash Line when it comes to its bulk, it's absolutely insane how fat this thing is. It's so fat. Zardex, but bulkier, and on top of that, the fact that you have the option and ability to run boots, your Zardex doesn't have to worry about hazard removal, popping or anything like that. You're not coming in at 75% every single time you switch in, which really gives a ton of opportunity to set up Dragon Dances and win the game, but also being a little bit more defensive, maybe running that Burning Bull signature move, getting a burn on something, running Dragon Tail. You have access to Morning's End for reliable recovery, so even if you are Dragon Dance, maybe you're running a max Spadef Dragon Dance set and you're setting up all over the bulky water that thinks that it can check you. So this Pokemon is very good, and I think if aptly supported with proper hazards and momentum getting into it, supporting offensive pieces, I think it can still be a very, very solid Pokemon for Thomas here. Despite it maybe being a little early, that doesn't mean it's not incredibly solid.
Yeah, guys, and just so you know, we are going to be taking a little bit more time on everyone's first overall pick. These are going to be the Pokemon that everyone picks around. This is the number one, this is the captain, this is the star of the show. You'll probably see it each and every week. You know, Gouging Fire is cool. It's first overall toy, but next pick we have is Mr. Jonathan Jr. Jonathan Jr. went with the band. We have Dragapult. Dragapult's a great Pokemon. Typically, this is the first overall pick, depending on who you ask. Dragapult's a great Pokemon. Ghost and Dragon. Very fast. Fastest of the format outside niche things like Deoxys Speed, which we did indeed allow. Things like Electrode, things like Regieleki. So being able to have the speed aspect is pretty sick. Literally able to run incredible amounts of bulk week in, week out is very cool. Crazy coverage. It's got good stuff on the physical and the special side. Phantom Force isn't the best physical ghost stab, but you see it running Shadow Ball most of the time. And who knows, maybe he'll get spicy and do some Power Herb shenanigans if he needs to get a big hit off. But Dragapult's a great Pokemon that's able to just tailor itself per matchup. This is typically the first overall pick we see, but since we're in the DLC too, we have mons that are new toy, birder, how's it gonna be, thumbnail. So, you know, John wanting to have a Gouging Fire, my man was like tweaking the fact that this thing left. So you have to kind of pick Dragapult if it's there. He wants to have a great season. He in his mind is ready to go. He's made playoffs and gotten close to he's gotten close to the championship. He's tasted it, so he wants to go pretty gung-ho. I'm not surprised that Dragapult went overall. What do you think about taking Dragapult second instead of first?
Lucky John. This is in my draft league history. Absolutely incredible. Touched on so good, right? We need to beat a dead horse in that regards, right? Great coverage, great speed. Can afford to have great bulk because of the great speed. Ghost is the best off-typing in the game this gen in general. Maybe followed by Dark or replaced by Dark, but it's at least top two in my opinion, making it a really, really incredible Pokemon, and also very easy to build around. It is very hard to build a bad Dragapult team. It really is. As long as you know what Dragapult facilitates well, you're going to have a good roster, and you're probably going to have a good time. I know this is a Pokemon that John's definitely going to thrive with building-wise. We're definitely going to see random Reflector Light Screen Dragapult too, which is going to make me very angry, but it'll work for John, obviously, as he's had success with it in the past, which is really funny. But again, very, very solid Pokemon. You can't go wrong with Pokemon. This is the best draft league Pokemon ever. So,
facts. Third overall pick, which is, I believe, there's 1 second, team.
There's a blank screen.
Just so just so we're aware, just so you guys know, this is actually going to be a projection from our boy CB Marcus. So if there's any kind of issue, then there's probably something going on. Which is, we're gonna pop this off like this. Well, you're gonna get a couple spoilers. Boom. We have Matt. Stop slacking. Boom. That should be fixed. There we go. Low technical difficulties, but we're back.
Beautiful.
Latios. Latios goes third overall. We have Matt taking this Pokemon was the one that I wanted to take. Owen, my man, was like, "Dang, you're not getting it." So I like.
I was getting there. Sure.
I thought I could. Yeah, I was trying to squeeze it out of the 5th overall. This Pokemon's incredible. I love this thing a lot. Dragon and Psychic, it's got some cool new toys. Flip Turn is really nice on niche sets if you want to get that momentum on a Pokemon that is going to switch in on Latios. It's not going to be as good in OU as it could be in Draft. Typically in Draft League, you are able to see the entire team, right? So you're preparing for the Latios. So you would have a quote-unquote check for it, and being able to just click Flip Turn on that said check to be able to get into more favorable matchup is really cool to have in the back pocket for Latios. What's the name of its new move that got buffed to like base 95 power and has
old move? Old move.
It's an old move that got buffed in power.
Yeah, the Lotties, they have a signature. A lot of people don't know that, especially if you're not a Gen 3 head like myself. In the sense that they weren't very good. They were only 70 base power and they had Loopy, so they typically weren't used. They were 70 base power. For Latios, that was Luster Purge. Luster Purge has a 50% chance to drop the target's Spit F by 2, which is really, really good on a Pokemon as strong as Latios. I'm telling you right now, actually, don't listen to you. If you run Flip Turn once on this monster, you're getting kicked from the league. Attack. Like, click the fucking button, man. You simply do not click Flip Turn on your Latios. click Luster Purge and then kill someone with Draco Warrior. Oh my gosh. But this thing is incredible. I remember night of the draft, I was so excited because I knew Tom was getting gouging. I knew John was getting pulled. And then I just need Slacking to not take Latios. So excited. I was like, let's use Latios against championship mono. I've won championship before. I love this guy. He's even better this gen. And he took it right before me. I was so upset.
Yeah, this is a good pick, guys. This one's massive. This is probably my most favorite. When I saw that I was a higher pick, before I had the conversation with Owen, I thought I had the opportunity to get it. Latios is super fun. I had it in past generations. It did what it did in the past, just better. It literally, it's done so much. The only thing that this thing kind of lost out on was the overall nerf to the recovery moves. It doesn't have Roost, but it still has Recover, but it's only 8 PP. That's literally the only thing. Otherwise, Latios does what Latios did in the past. And let's talk about your pick. We let it happen. Deoxys speed is allowed. So what do you think about your first pick?
Let's go. I'm excited, right? Like really at all in general, because back in Gen 7 when this thing, you know, in the game, a lot of leagues and especially a lot of Wi-Fi leagues weren't allowing it very often. I didn't play in a lot that allowed it. Not that it was broken in Gen 7 or even in Gen 8 and Dex leagues, but it's a very fun one. We were talking about John having speed. I mean, I can run relaxed nature and outspeed your whole team this season. Deoxys speed is incredibly fast, incredibly versatile, right? We can go set up areas with Calm Mind, Cosmic Power, Nasty Plot, or we can set up spikes and rock if we really want to. We can also taunt things, we can Thunderwave things, we can be the ultimate utility and support Pokemon for the rest of our roster, or just be really freaking strong, like Psycho Boost and Focus Blast and Superpower and Ice Beam and Thunderbolt and all the crazy coverage that everything does have. So yeah, definitely a really incredible Pokemon. It looks like my mic is a little. I'm gonna leave back.
Okay. So in the meantime, while he does, I'll talk about my pick. I got the 5th overall pick. We got the boy Blood Moon. Ironically enough, if it wasn't Latios, it's gonna be this. So I'm very excited to use it. It's not new. It's, you know, it came in the first DLC, kind of, more a little bit before that, but for the most part, it's new to us. So Ursaluna Blood Moon was at the top of my list, and after talking to the 4 peeps that were in front of me, I was like, okay, cool, I'm kind of locked in on this, which is really cool. Ursaluna Blood Moon is an absolute demon. My playstyle is very simple. What I'm most comfortable with is to click the set flip turn button and being able to get the threats in. So Ursaluna is that Pokemon that's really able to rip apart my opponents. Mind's Eye is basically like normal type Scrappy, and this thing has an exclusive move called Blood Moon that has a 140 base power to it. It's normal type stab, and it literally can only click once and then it has to recharge. So technically there's no drawback. It's similar to Gigaton Hammer from Tinkaton. So I'm really cool that's able to just come in and click one button and nuke something. It's literally a trade. Almost every single time it comes in, you have to trade either half of your health, if not an entire Pokemon, for being able to switch on an Ursaluna. So I really wanted to try this thing out. But it's got other really cool stuff. It has reliable recovery and Moonlight. Well, I say reliable recovery because it gets neutered by things like rain, but for the most part, it's very good to be able to keep this thing nice and healthy. It gets Calm Mind to be able to set things up. It's got Vacuum Wave. It's a bear that's fast all of a sudden. It has priority, which is really cool for
it's a bear that's fast.
It's a bear that's fast. I love it, dude. It's so good. So normal and ground type, it gets the ground typing out of the way. One of the most important typings in the game. The things that resist normal is steel and rock. Being able to hit that with your ground typing is fantastic. Can literally only run dual stabs and be just fine. So being able to just not think and click buttons was very enticing to me. So very excited to get Ursaluna Blood Moon. I think it's going to be big. It's going to be a big one for me. I like it a lot. Next up we have is Champion Brayden. What do you think about Keldeo and its little buff?
The heart wants what the heart wants. This is a little bit early for Keldeo, I won't lie to you. But I am a Keldeo believer. I do think this Pokemon is very solid. It's always been a very good one. Great speed tier, great dual stab combination. Look at Urshifu Rapid Strike. Really, Quacklefall. Anything that has that water fighting stab combination has seen success in the Draft League format. Pretty consistent success. Now, again, this is a little bit early, but Keldeo has a lot to offer. Whether it be Calm Mind variants, Choice Specs variants. It's great with a Choice Scarf. It can flip, turn around, and be a great revenge killer. Its stab combination is pretty much unresisted across the entirety of Pokemon. And even a lot of the Pokemon that can, you know, necessarily take on Keldeo can get sub Calm Mind on pretty easy. It did get a couple cool new toys this generation, and one being Pain Split, which Aster Swears is a really cool buff. I don't know about that one. I think Pain Split would be a pretty good ring on the Keldeo, but I think Vacuum Wave is actually really big on it. I love Vacuum Wave on potentially Choice Specs rings, especially because if you've used Keldeo in the past, you know that very often you don't need much other than water fighting, and that's it. You're typically even going to run like dual water stabs, run Surf or Scald in the past, I guess just Surf now, plus Hydro Pump, and then like Focus Blast plus Secret Sword. You really can't get away with double stab, so one of those for really strong stab priority can be really nice in a generation full of a bunch of cheese that you want to be able to out prioritize and knock out once it gets set up. So I definitely really enjoy that aspect of it. Definitely a really solid Pokemon here. Again, but definitely nothing too crazy.
Hey man, if it's your at the beginning and you have a Pokemon that you want to pick up, I guess it makes sense. Now we have Iron Valiant, which went after Keldeo, which is kind of mind-boggling. Iron Valiant, which is probably top 5, depending on who you ask. In Draft League, Fairy Fighting, incredible typing, unique to Iron Valiant. It's basically Glade and Gardevoir combined together. Incredible coverage on the physical and the special side. It's a little bit stronger on the physical side, even though it wants to run special stuff, which is okay, but it still has the versatility to run both. This also got Vacuum Wave amongst like everything else in the decks, which is really cool. And on this Pokemon is actually really nice. Being able to just have that stab priority is really cool, especially if you go full specially offensive. This mon is very fast with booster energy. It's able to outspeed the vast majority of teams. Very good Pokemon to pick the first overall. It's very scary if you let it steamroll, if you let it get going in mid towards the end of the matchup. So it's a good like end win con like button that helps you just take over the game completely. I love the availability to just have coverage for its checks, which is really nice. So Iron Valiant's a good pick. I like it a lot. It's something that we saw in the last set of draft leagues, but it's very reliable. It's very reliable. It does what it does best. Now we have Spectrier going real early to Aster J. What's your opinion on this guy going on top of drafts?
I think it's fine depending on the player. Now, I have very adamantly been a Spectre hater, especially in like Generation 8. But in Generation 9, I think it's objectively a lot better. It's a Pokemon I don't use well personally. Not great with it, even when I had in WPF. I made it to semifinals, and I think my Spectre had like 6 kills, and all the things I drafted to support Spectre had like 20. But that doesn't change the fact that Spectre is a debatably top 10 Pokemon in the format right now, and it can be incredibly oppressive and overwhelming depending on how you draft and support with it. If you have something for those ghost resistant immunities, if you're stacking a lot of passive chip through hazard and status throughout the rest of your team, this becomes absolutely obnoxious. And there's always the potential for Spectre to just bully its checks, whether it be with like Will-O-Wisp, Calm Mind variants, Taunt. I mean, there's so many different things this thing can do to really bully and beat down its checks. It's great with Will-O-Wisp and weakness policy for a lot of those dark types. It's great with, you know, like I said, Taunt variants. It can Nasty Plot. It can be great with the Scarf, great with the Specs. And it finally got Draining Kiss, which is the main thing that really helps. That having coverage for dark types is great, because now I can focus my counter team aspect on really beating down that normal type that's immune to my Ghost Stab, and start compounding and stacking those special attack boosts through Grim Neigh and really take over teams. So depending on how your drafts around it, this thing's going to be very solid. And Aster is obviously a very good player and a very good drafter. So I don't think it's too crazy to get Spectre early round 1. It's just you have to know who you are as a player. I would never draft this thing in round 1, but this is an early round 1 pick, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's a very good Pokemon. Iron Boulder, we have a new toy going to D-Double and the Edmonton Coilers. This is going to be the fastest booster energy Pokemon outside of Iron Bundle, which is really nice. And that Pokemon is only one on the other, so this is very nice to be able to have a booster energy and outspeed the entire team for the most part, outside Scarfers that are already faster than Iron Boulder. Psychic and Rock, kind of a bad typing, very bad typing actually defensively. Offensively, it's nice. Having a move that's a rock type that is base 95 power and is 100% accurate is fantastic, and having coverage in things like close combat and earthquake are really nice. It literally hits everything neutrally, if not super effectively. Edgequake's just so good physically. Having access to a very bulky Spadef stat, so it's surprisingly going to be able to live a good amount of hits on the special side and get up 1 Swords Dance, and if it comes in on a booster energy, then a +2 attack, it gets kind of scary. So this is a really cool Pokemon. This is definitely going to go round 1 because of the new toy syndrome. It's cool that it went higher, which is really nice. I'm very excited that Dell got it specifically. I think that he's going to do really well with it. Iron Boulder is going to be one of those Pokemon that well, it's like a suspect test, right? This Pokemon seems like it's going to be very, very, very good in draft. Everyone kind of thought it was ass in the beginning, and after looking into it a little bit more, people were realizing, dang, Iron Boulder is the truth. So hopefully Dell is able to, you know, bring that to light. It's a very good pick first overall, and I can see where he's going with it. Now we have Great Tusk, a big old Great Tusk on Obo's team. What you thinking about the Morpeko United taking this one?
Oh man, reliable. I love this thing. This thing's incredible, man. Roll compression, the Pokemon. I was watching Aster, one of our coaches, obviously we just talked about, his draft announced for TGS yesterday, and he drafted Great Tusk, and he said it perfectly in the sense that this is just roll compression, the Pokemon. Whether you need a breaker, a solid scarf, or a great wind with bulk up, booster speed. Wake up, Owen. A great AV sponge, a great rocker, great removal. I mean, incredible Pokemon, incredible coverage. It's very akin to, you know, Lando in that sense, and that's why it's been, you know, kind of joked around that this is a new Lando. I had it a couple seasons ago in BVR in season 5. I absolutely loved it. Very easy to build around. It's so unbelievably strong too. The ground fighting stat combination alongside Ice Spinner, Temper Flare, Super Slow Slam, kinda. I think the move's ass, but it's okay on Tusk in the sense that grounds aren't always going to be switching in on you, right? Bulk Up, Earthquake, Headlong. I mean, this thing really does do it all. It's absolutely incredible. Great one. Great pick here with for Obo.
Which is super funny because Super Cell Slam is supposed to be like the equivalent of jump kick, right? So you would think that the electric type jumps like with a kick. This fucking elephant be jumping with his hind legs. I think it's hilarious.
He be Super Cell Slamming.
He'd be Super Cell Slamming. That's what I'm talking about, man. This is the first overall pick for Amol. We have Terapagos. Terapagos is indeed allowed. This is the Terrestrial form. So for those who don't know, Terapagos is a baby boy. He's a little turtle. And the moment he switches in, he turns into this guy, which is like it's a little tad bit bulkier than Mew. It's got some good coverage. It's a rapid spinner, so now he has removal turn 1, which is nice. But this Pokemon in Draft League, I think, is going to be an absolute demon. It was indeed banned in OU, singles competitive play, but in Draft League, it's going to be TBD. It doesn't seem like it's too crazy, but in a coach's hands like this, we'll see. TBD. Great Mon to be able to set up rock polishes. It has a move that is equivalent to like Boom Burst, and it has its own, so it's very powerful. It's able to set up very easily. Its ability is similar to multi-scale, which means that any move of any typing is always going to be not very effective, not cut in half, but not very effective, which is similar to multi-scale, but a little bit different and more unique to itself. So depending on how powerful the move is, it could do a little bit more, a little bit less. It just makes it non-super effective, which is ineffective, I should say. So it's got some versatility to it. It's got great coverage. It can be physical, it can be special. It does not have recovery, but it does have toxic, which is really cool for it. Being able to break down walls is very nice. Amol is known to do some crazy stuff, so having a Mon that could be very versatile is really cool, because you never know what to expect with Amol. It's not going to be the same thing every single week, and I think this is a good Amol Pokemon first overall. So I think it's a TBD to see how Terapagos goes, so let's see how he does with it. Next up we have is Excadrill. He's back, and he's in the first round. What you think about the boy coming in?
Oh baby, he is back. It's such a fun Pokemon to use. Drill plus Sand is always going to be a very reliable playstyle. So securing that early on is a really smart thing to do, especially when you're in the latter half draft, where you're kind of drafting almost not necessarily in pairs, as I think he is 13th out of, or not necessarily at the back wheel, but pretty darn close to it. Very reliable Pokemon. Rapid Spin obviously being a big boost to Excadrill's viability, allowing it to boost speed as well as get rid of hazards on the opposing side. It being great understand with Sand Brush or Sand Force, either being a great cleaner or a great breaker, or potentially both, obviously, depending on the matchup. Mold Breaker is obviously an ability as well. Your Rotom Wash does not switch into me. I nuke him with Earthquake, right? It's obviously going to be very smart and very solid as well. And there definitely probably isn't coming back to. And I know it seems a little early for Drill, but I don't think it's that bad. Especially if you are set, I want to use Sand. Sand is definitely something that goes early round 2, or Drill is something that goes early round 2, typically on that back end of the wheel. And I really don't think this guy would have ended up coming back to Viz here. So I think it's a pretty valid pick. Going to be a very solid Pokemon, especially if he ends up getting that Sand aspect later on and really bolstering its viability. So definitely a solid pickup here from Viz.
It's super freaking strong. This Mon's so strong. It doesn't have Terra, but it still does what it did in the past. This Mon is super hard to switch into. And it's one of those Mons that requires a check. So you have to think of it in the back of your head. I think it's a great pick. I think Excadrill is incredible. Urshifu single strike also is allowed, and then we have a new old player picking a new Pokemon to him. Urshifu single strike is the dark fighting version that has a one-click button that always crits. It's very good. Wicked Blow is incredible. It's got Gen 9 love the Urshifu picks. They literally just made an item specifically, it feels like, for Urshifu. Having Punching Glove and Wicked Blow being powered by Punching Glove at 1.2 times, plus any other punching move that it has. Great coverage. It's got literally all elemental punches, I believe. Fire, ice, and thunder, which is really cool for Urshifu. It still has U-turn momentum to be able to switch in on, basically click U-turn on fairies that want to switch in. And there's still, even though the decks did get expanded, fairies are still at a premium. So there aren't very many incredible fairies, so still being able to click that Wicked Blow button for free and do an incredible amount of damage on one move is so good. So Urshifu single is a good Pokemon for Panther to come back on. I like this one a lot. It's very, very scary. A lot of draft leagues are going to be banning this mon, but you know, we're the BBR. Smile. Next pick that we have is Garchomp going to CB Marcus. You want to give them the Keegan 411 on this one? Of what the first round on Garchomp?
Well, you drafted a rocker, the 3 attacks rocker round 1. That's crazy, Marcus. What a bad. No, I'm just kidding. I think Keegan is probably the only person who would disagree with me here. Yeah. But I think Garchomp is like a top 5, at minimum top 10 Pokemon in the format. I think this thing is absolutely incredible. We talked about Urshifu going very late, which they did. They got Urshifu a little bit later than it typically goes for. But Garchomp even more so, man. I think this thing is absolutely incredible. It is much more than just a stealth rocker. It obviously can rock, which is a very reliable one at doing so. It can also spike, which is very incredible. But it also is a great choice scarfer, right? With 102 base speed, speed base 100 is an incredible, valuable tool. It's great with a band. There's nothing that nukes more than a band chomp. Not fun. Do not like band chomp. But it can also Swords Dance and Scale Shot and form as a pseudo Dragon Dance sweeper. It takes us 2 turns, but then we're +2/+1. And we're proudly killing everything. It's also very difficult to have Scarfers faster than Garchomp. It really puts a lot of strain in the builder when it comes to that aspect. So I think Garchomp is an incredible Pokemon to build around, especially considering he is closer to that back wheel, meaning he is going to get some great pairings to this Garchomp here soon. So great pickup here. Great pickup.
And then we have Torrentee. Torrentee is going to scoop back over to Nate Galvanate in his New York Noibats. This is another one of those very scary Pokemon that's just reliable. You don't get a new toy, so get a really good Pokemon. Pure Flying type, has the best ability in the game in Regenerator. Great coverage. It just basically hit button and switch out, get your health back 33% for absolute free. It's got knockoff to remove items, which is really reliable. It's got Bleak Wind Storm now, so it has an alternative to Hurricane if he wants to run that. Has things like Taunt to be able to stop setup, which is really nice, or stop hazards in that manner. Being able to have good coverage and have a good physical attacker and special attacker is really nice. This is versatility.exe. And Tornadus, I have used it in the past. It's really easy to just plug onto the team at the very end, and it easily outspeeds the entirety of the opponent's roster because it is very fast. I believe it's base 121 speed, which is very fast. It's a very good speed tier. And being able to come on in and just click a button and get out and get health for free. Stop an assault vest on it, and it's able to choose special hits. Heavy duty boots, it comes in for free on hazards, switches out, keeps its health. It's very hard to take a Tornadus down, and this Pokemon is very bulky. So it's able to really just have its way with the matchup. I like it a lot. It's an easy glue piece to just come on and plug and play. So it's a very good Pokemon for the Noibats to pick up here. I like it a lot. It got pushed back because of the new toy stuff, but great still pick up towards the very end. And now we have the very last pick of the first round. We have Palafin, which is also allowed. Smile. What do you think about Palafin in Draft League? I guess this is a hot topic.
I mean, this thing has a very high ceiling, right? Incredibly strong. I mean, look at this thing. It's incredibly strong. Very bulky. Very solid, versatile moveset. Whether it be choice band sets, whether it be taunt bulk up sets or sub bulk up sets. Obviously, have the strong priority in Jet Punch. It can even go special or mixed. It can agility sweep as well with those special sets with Boom Burst and throat spray and things like that. But there obviously is always going to be an opportunity cost in having such of a high ceiling, right? After to switch this thing in and out, makes it very finicky and difficult to play with, and positioning it a little bit more difficult than your standard round 1 pick. but that doesn't mean that it's not worth the round 1 pick, right? This Pokemon is very incredible. It's done very well in the BBR and in most draft leagues in the past, and I don't think it's going to be any different for Keegan. He's just going to have to draft in a way that allows him to pivot in and out with this Palafin, be able to find free opportunities to flip out with his baby Finn, or switch it in and switch it out because he's a solid defensive backbone that can afford the extra turn that he's giving up. And as long as he does draft around it well, this thing's going to do well for him. Yeah, I definitely don't think there's anything too crazy.
Yeah, this is another one of those. The other draft leagues will just ban this thing outright because it's tough to play and I guess quote unquote not fun to play against. But in a competitive league like this, I think the coaches will be able to handle it just fine, and it's a great first overall pick, especially towards the very tail end. So you can pair it off with something really, really nice. So in regards to the BBR draft slides, you guys are going to start to notice, you see in the bottom left-hand corner is the first overall pick is Palafin. As the coaches start to select, that white space will start to fill up with their team. So now we're going to start to see what these guys have paired up with their first overall pick. We're going to move a little bit quicker. It's going to go straight on into it. It's a snake style format, so which means that since Keegan was able to pick last in the very first round, he gets to pick first in the very second round. So he's going to pair up Palafin with Meowscarada, which is crazy. This Pokemon is so good. It got so many buffs. They gave it triple axle. And with Protein, this Pokemon is like Weavile.exe 2.0. Very strong Pokemon, has priority in Sucker Punch. Flower Trick, always critting 100% of the time, is incredible. So it's tough to just get a bulky Pokemon and try to set up like bulk ups on it, or Iron Defenses is just going to crit straight through it. It's a grass type move, which isn't very good offensively, but nonetheless it is still stab. It can still run Overgrow as well, so there's still that versatility to get those boosts on the Flower Trick is really nice. It has great coverage in things like Play Rough, it can U-turn out, it's got Spikes, which is really nice as a hazard setting lead. There's a lot of versatility to being able to add to this team. And since Palafin doesn't really like coming in and hitting those water types because they're most of the time going to be the quote-unquote check to a Palafin, being able to flip turn out on those water types that come in on Palafin and bring in Meowscarada to threaten those Flower Tricks is huge for it. So these are offensively an incredible pairing. I like this a lot. And then we have Infernape. What do you think about Infernape coming with Tornadus? We have two old heads back on one team.
Yeah, this is very Gen 6, Gen 7 type beat right here, but that doesn't mean it's bad, obviously. Infernape's going to be a very versatile Pokemon. It's only gotten better this generation, obviously, with the addition of moves like Knockoff to its move pool, which is really cool for it. But Infernape, again, a very versatile Pokemon, whether it be a Stealth Rocker, right? Very reliable one at that, or what it's most known for in being a reliable Choice Scarfer, which is great, because now we have great speed and Tornadus naturally. We also have a great Choice Scarf speed tier. Not only that, we can set up Swords Dances, we can set up nasty plots, or even really calm minds. I've seen bulky Infernates work as well with Will-O-Wisp and Slack Off for like the random Weavile matchup or the random Scizor matchup where Infernate's defensive typing ends up shining despite not being the bulkiest thing in the world. It's great with a Choice Band, great with a Choice Specs. I mean, great with a Life Orb mix, physical special. This thing really is kind of a jack of all trades offensively, and has some fun defensive niches which make it very, very solid as well. Priority and Mach Punch and Vacuum Wave, which is again great for it. I believe it also got Worse through this gem, which is really cool in special sets. Not having to run Focus Blast, that can obviously miss. So I think this is going to be a very solid pickup here from Nate.
Very fast team. And now we have Slowking Galar coming in to kill the grasses and the fairies for the Garchomp. I like this pairing a lot. CB Marcus has got a good start to a core team. This is really cool. These two Pokemon are literally going to come each and every week. Slowking Galar literally does everything. It lives hits that it shouldn't. The poison and psychic typing is really nice defensively. It still has been an avenue to be able to take a hit and get out with momentum with Chilly Reception, which is really nice. It also gives him a little bit element of snow, so if he wants to take advantage of that moving forward, that's pretty cool to being able to come in, take a hit, set up the snow for something else in the back, depending on what he wants to draft. I think it's something that he could put in his back pocket. This could be a nasty plot set. It could be a very threatening sweeper with Trick Room, which is really, really nice. So Slowking is able to do lots of stuff. It's not just going to be that Pokemon that comes bulky, choose a hit, and then gets in his teammates. It's able to be a threat in its own, and having incredible coverage, being a stem from a Gen 1 Pokemon is really cool, and it's a great pairing with Garchomp. I think that this is a home run hit. I like this pick a lot. Then we have Goldango, one of the best steel types I think in the format. What do you think about this pairing?
I think it's another tried and true, very reliable core here from Panth. some help in the build because I don't think you knew who these guys were until last week. But still a really good pickup, right? What's going to be the main thing that, you know, pivots into Urshifu's and checks Urshifu? It's going to be your fat defensive fairies resisting both dual stab, which is obviously, you know, really annoying for Urshifu, but it doesn't matter when I U-turn my Goldango and I click a choice specs, make it rain, and something dies, right? So I think that's a great aspect. This is a great offensive and defensive pairing for Urshifu. Say I'm bringing choice band Urshifu and I want to click Wicked Blow. I don't want to click U-turn. I click Wicked Blow, 40% to the fairy that comes in, and then get a free switch into my Goldango where I can either recover off the damage or offensively pressure that fairy if it decides to recover up, keeping up offensive initiative and momentum in Panther's favor. This is also going to help if he ends up going a hazard stack route. Obviously, Goldango being the best spin blocker and only defog blocker in the entire game. Urshifu loves spikes, man. It loves spikes being up, and Goldango is going to be a great facilitator of making sure those stay. So I think this is a perfect pairing. I think this is one of the best Pokemon you can get with Urshifu Single Strike in the Generation 9 metagame right now. So very solid. 100%.
And I do want to kind of preface this, guys, for those who don't know who Panther is. We gas him up for a good reason. He's earned this respect. He's a fantastic. This dude's fucking good. Like, honestly, he's just fucking good. Have you ever seen like those movies where the driver was a fantastic driver in the past and then he retires and they give him a new car? He has to figure out how to drive the new car, but he's still the driver. He's still a very good competitor. So once he gets up to speed and studies up his team, he's a fucking threat. So I'm terrified. This is going to be a very good offensive core. It's a good start to a team. I like it a lot. And then we have Zapdos, which honestly I'm very excited to talk about because it feels like almost every single time on every single team, for those who have played Draft League in the past can kind of attest to this. This Mon is like not necessarily, I don't want to say just generically so good, but it's so good on every team that it's on. It really does what it does best so well. Electric and flying, fantastic defensive typing, and fantastic offensive typing. It's really able to get those grass types and those ground types depending on which ground type you're switching in, and does incredible damage. I guess the drawback is that it's not 100% accurate, but being able to just spam your stabs is so good. Having static as an ability, being able to resist like fighting type moves and also punish the close combatter to get paralyzed is really nice. It has momentum in both U-turn and Volt Switch. As Roost for longevity, this Pokemon could do a lot. If it's able to just come on in and paralyze the team and slow things down for things like Excadrill, it's fantastic. Excadrill does not like grass types. What kills grass types? Zapdos. Excadrill doesn't like water types. What kills water types? Zapdos. This is a good pair. I like this a lot. I don't think that the rain is going to be a thing that he does to get that accurate Hurricane because he's got Drill on there, which is fine for Zapdos. But this Mon is literally so good on every team that it's on. It is a very good time to pick this thing up. It was on my radar too because again, it just does what it needs to do for every single team. Probably the best. This is one of my favorite Pokemon to use in draft, and it was on my radar, so I'm sad that it went, but it's a very good pick for Biz. I like it a lot. Now Pecharunt. It got released yesterday? What's our thing on this guy?
I think this thing, this is the most aimless start of all time. He's spending points, but I didn't get to talk about his trial pick. That Pokemon was built for Amel to use, right? That thing's gonna be obnoxious in his hands, including this guy. I mean, I've seen a couple uses of this already, right? In Showdown Leagues, like in the Showdown League that I'm the upload one, in week 1, I saw an Adamant Max Attack Tinglu do 44% to this thing with Earthquake. 44, it wasn't even nice. This thing is ungodly bulky on the physical side. When you take into account, obviously with its signature move, giving a pretty high chance to poison, and its ability confusing things that it poisons, makes it really obnoxious. And you might think, okay, well then, you know, I'm just gonna go into my steel type. What steel types are breaking 3 consistently? They're all mostly physical attackers. So that means I can, being a ghost and poison type, I can set up a nasty pot, I can shadow ball you, I can also mean look you and nightshade you down and beat you down that way, and then just wall everything else. This thing is going to be a nuisance. Thank God for the competition timers. This guy would literally not be allowed to be played on the toilet timer if he didn't have the fix there. This guy is going to be really obnoxious. Little Mochi guy is gonna, again, a perfect Amon. When I saw both of these guys introduced, I'm like, oh dude, the Pokegods were looking out for our boy. They will win his Gen 9 chip, and I think he got both of them, which is really exciting. So I'm definitely excited for him to use these.
Yeah, the only weakness that Terapagos has is fighting. Checked literally with the first 2 Pokemon, and
immediately.
immediately from Amel's hands in general too, which is incredibly nuts. I'm fucking terrified. Greninja, we had a conversation about this amongst our friend group, talking about how Greninja wasn't like the first overall pick on most drafts. Mind you, this is Greninja that's able to use all 3 abilities. Yes, 1, 2, 3: Battle Bond, Protein, and Torrent, depending on which one he wants to do on that matchup. Battle Bond not as good as it was in last gen or Gen 7 because it doesn't turn into Ash Greninja and it doesn't maintain it once it's converted. It still activates the same way. You got to kill a Pokemon in order for it to do it, and it gets an Omni boost essentially with +2 in attacks and +2 in speed, which I call an Omni boost, but it's not. It's just more of an offensive boost. But it has it only once, and it's a stat boost, which means that if he switches it out, he comes back in, it's gone. So it's not as good as it was in Gen 7, but it could still steamroll and literally win the game, which is really cool. Protein, very good. Nerfed this gen, but still fantastic to be able to change that typing of that attack for that one, and then switch out, switch back in, and then change it again. Very cool. Very strong pairing with Great Tusk. I think it's very nice. So it's not like the first overall, like this is going to be my best Pokemon, but it's a good complement. It's a good second Pokemon. And with these two specifically, I think it's really, really nice. He's got a water type problem. A good water type's able to wall kind of for the most part, the both of these guys outside of their coverage, even though they do get good physical side on Great Tusk, especially with the Greninja. But for the most part, it's something that he can patch up. It is Draft League. So this is a very good 1-2 punch. I think it's really nice. It's good solid. Speaking of Zapdos Galar, you want to give him the Kirby quote when he hopped in?
Oh,
what is it?
Man.
Terrakion at home?
Okay, come on, can we get Terrakion on the way home? We have Terrakion at home. He got the Paradox Terrakion, and then he got the Fighting Tank immediately after. Funny, but it also makes sense to an extent, right? Something that offensive psychics obviously typically struggle with and things like that are going to be obviously bulky darks and things like that, whereas Zapdos is really going to thrive and hit those hard. Same thing with bulky steels. Zapdos Galar is going to be a great means of really breaking through those guys and doing a ton of damage, and this is a great 1-2 punch for the offensive side. I think both of these Pokemon are very strong. This is a great Scarfer, great with a Choice Band. Again, just really not the most versatile Pokemon in the world, but it is going to be very strong and do what it does very, very well. Good pick up your Fel. Again, his picks are a little bit early seeing because of the way he kind of drafted himself with getting the round 1 boulder. But that doesn't mean that his Pokemon aren't still pairing together well, right? And that's the most important thing. Your Pokemon are synergizing well, and you're comfortable with your build. So as long as he's doing that, team looks good so far. Yo, hello? Hello? Hello?
Oh, you can hear me? Fun times.
Yeah, I can. I finished the pick and you're like, you want me to say something more? I was like, alright.
Iron Treads goes with Spectre. This Pokemon, this sucks because this is the mod that I wanted, but it got taken here, which is very upsetting. Once the Donphan starts to go, it starts to steamroll. Great Tusk went first in the first round, and here comes Iron Treads. The two best premier spinners in the entire format. I'm very upset that it didn't come to me. I think it would have been a great pairing with my bear, but it's still a great pairing here with the Spectrier. Being able to come and have the steel and the ground typing is very, very nice. Having access to Volt Switch to switch out on the grass types that want to come in on Iron Treads, and being able to get that Spectrier for free is really cool. Spectrier is going to really enjoy those free switch-ins. Being able to set up rocks on itself is really nice, so it's a 1-2 punch in regards to setting up and removing hazards. It can also be very offensive as well. It has things like, it has good coverage in general, knockoff, earthquake, it gets access to its stabs in steel, as well as rock coverage. Is a very good mod. I like it a lot. Being able to have booster energy availability is really cool to boost its defenses or its speed. It can really steamroll a team at the very end. I've seen Jack Gravy, our reigning champion for the BBR, use this very, very well into great success. So in the hands of Aster, I think it's going to be very good and quite scary. Aster's a very good guy. There's a bunch of good players here. Aster's one of those top guys that I'm very terrified to play. And this is so far a really solid 1-2 punch. I like this a lot. Hisuian Samurott with Valiant. Spikes the Val. What you think?
Speaking of solid 1-2 punch, man, this is pretty nuts. Round 2 Hisuian Samurott is great. Yeah, where it typically should go, but I think you got it. The back wheel Pokemon, right? You see Samurott going. Just the concept of being able to attack with a very very strong stab sharpness move while setting up a layer of spikes is a ridiculous concept, especially on a move that doesn't have immunity. There's literally nothing you can do to stop it other than Oko it before it sets up a move, which isn't cool on a Pokemon that can be very bulky, whether it be with like Focus Sash Lead to guarantee get up your spike, whether it be Scarf, with Band, with Swords Dance, with Assault Vest. I've loved using Assault Vest to Sui Samurai because Water Dark is also a very good offensive and defensive typing too. So really solid. I'll pick up here with Val. Val really appreciates the spikes being up. It really does kind of lack in that Oko potential a lot of the time without Terra. And it's not the bulkiest Pokemon on the split side, right? So it's pretty easy to Oko it back. Very much so Glass Cannon type bond. So getting up as many hazards as possible is going to make it to where that Valiant comes in, it clicks Moonblast, Close Combat, Focus Blast, whatever move you're clicking, and you're picking up KOs all of the time, which is great. It's also another pivot. It does have access to flip turn. It can also knock off items. I mean, this thing's incredible. I think it's like the round 2 pick of Generation 9. Incredible Pokemon. Great pairing here from Tiro. I was definitely really impressed with this one.
Now we have Ogerpon Heartflame. Ogerpon going in the second round. Now for basically the way it's going to work, more democracy. We have the coaches vote that if you pick Ogerpon, you get to in then turn pick which form, aka mask, that Ogerpon is going to wear for the season, and you have to use a transaction to change the mask. Or separate them all, as we did last season, which means that all of them are on the board. That was the winner of the vote, which means that Ogerpon Heartflame is the first Ogerpon off the board. This is the Fire and Grass version. Very good offensively. It does have a little bit of a drawback in its kind of thing. Its thing is to have this mask, and the mask is going to boost all of its attacks by 1.2 times, allowing it to give it the fire typing Ivy Cudgel and the fire typing overall, which means that it has to hold the mask. Can't hold boots, so it is a little bit rock sweep, which is unfortunate. You know that it's not going to be scarfed, which is something that's really nice for the opponent, but it's also a very great buff. It's kind of like a give and take kind of Pokemon, and it's a very strong offensive mon that's able to just set up a Swords Dance kind of reliably, because it could be pretty defensively bulky and has access to Swords Dance really well. So it could pick up and run with the matchup. Very good offensive piece. This is a good mon to help get rid of those grass types for Keldeo, which is really nice. So it's a good pairing offensively. So I'm curious to see how he like moves on forward from there. But I'm going to take away and talk about this one because
wow,
on Annihilate.
Wow, this is wow. Any Owen Wilsons in the chat? Wow. That's crazy. Anyways, go ahead. Let's tell them about this revolutionary pick from Grandmaster D. Wow. I'm at a loss for words. Was not ready.
We got it.
Wow.
We got it. The draft is over, everybody. Annihilate on the SoCal Annihilation again. I will draft this Pokemon till Kingdom Come. All right, listen, I love this Pokemon. I think personally it could be very versatile. I did not use it correctly the first time I had it. I 100% agree with that. I did do much better once I started just clicking buttons with it, and I get it. I know that. But I do know that this time it is not my Terrestrialization captain, which means I have a little bit more of an open book here. It does do what it's supposed to do well, right? It sets a bulk up, it has the broken move and Rage Fist. That's the biggest caveat with this Pokemon. I wanted, me personally, 2 Pokemon that are completely brain dead. They run their dual stabs, and that's all they need to do. Rage Fist, for those who don't know, if you touch this thing, if it gets a hit, it absorbs an attack, physical or special. It boosts its 50 base power Rage Fist by another 50 up until 6 times, which means that it maxes out at 350 base power. So it is very strong, and it does not reset, and I like it a lot. Now I will admit the other side of the coin, I do understand that this is not the top tier threat in Draft League that we thought it was. It's not the uber Pokemon that you get on Smogon, and it doesn't have Terra, which means it's not technically as good as it should be. It is an S tier, almost bannable Pokemon if it has Omni Terra. Next stage, if you allow it to Terra in general with specific typings, it's considered, I think, like an A tier Pokemon. This is a B tier. No Terra, is just Annihilate. I'm getting it at the very end of round 2. I think it's an incredible pairing with Ursaluna Blood Moon, being able to have the normal and the ghost typings to be able to come on in and just be immune to the fighting type attacks that want to come Ursaluna Blood Moon's way is really nice. It's able to block Rapid Spin for me, which is really nice, and punish Defog. So I like this pick a lot. I think it's gonna be really cool. It doesn't have the caveat, you know, that it has with Terra, but it's still gonna be, I think, a good mon to pair up with Ursaluna Blood Moon. But we'll see how this goes. I'm very excited, but the draft's over, guys. We can go home. I'm just kidding. I want to get your take. Here's your Iron Hands. What you got going on with these two pairings? Which is terrifying, by the way.
I'm so excited to use this guy. This is a Pokemon I've been I've been dying to try and use this. I love those Pokemon like the Melmetal Lunas of the world that are guaranteed 1-for-1s at minimum, if not 2 or 3-for-1s. Great defense checks and sponges to whatever I want it to be, whether it be physically defensive variants, whether it be resist berry variants, Shuka, Payapa, Roselli, whatever it might be. Right, being able to lure and take on whatever I want because I have incredible offensive coverage and being able to nuke them. Whether it be Assault Vest, whether it be Volt switching around and being a nuisance, whether it being Choice Band, including Choice Band close combat because I feel like it. I mean, this thing is absolutely incredible. I love Deoxys as well. The things of Deoxys, again, offensive Psychics typically struggle with defensive Steels and defensive Dark types. Iron Hands laughs in their face and absolutely bullies them. There was a couple of really good offensive fighting types that were left here. Another one I was really wanted was for Rapid Strike, which might have been the objective better pick, to be completely honest. But I've been dying to try this thing, man. This is the one Pokemon I went into draft this season, and I was like, I really want to use Iron Hands, man. I really want to use Iron Hands, and thankfully it came back to me, which I was really, really happy about and really, really excited about. So
and you snapped a lot of people too.
Oh, everybody behind me. I know John wanted it. I know, yeah. I think John wanted it for sure. I'm slacking. I'm not 100% sure, but I knew that they were very likely to take offensive fightings with the Dragapult obviously really loving an offensive fighting and Latios really loving an offensive fighting, or at least strong fightings, right? So I'm so excited to use this thing, man. Big fella is so good. I love me some Iron Hands. I'm really excited to use him. He's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, he was a big sniper. I had the pick for Thomas, and he was supposed to pick that Pokemon when he was.
Oh, Thomas was gonna do it. See, look at me. I'm next level.
Everybody wanted it. That's the hot commodity. Now we have Sneasler coming in for Dr. Slacking. Sneasler is a fantastic pairing over here with Latios. We know to kill the fairies. Fantastic mon because it's also able to come in on the dark type. So the dark types want to come in on Latios' Luster Purge, dies to a fighting type close combat stab, which is really nice. And then this still has Dire Claw. Yes, Dire Claw is indeed allowed. Dire Claw has a percentage to make the opponent fall asleep. Paralysis? There you go, that's the word. English. And then poison. So it has that chance to sleep the opponent. You can simply run Cobra Cloak, you know. It could be something that you have to force prep for. It's not as broken as we thought it was, so it does still have access to the Dire Claw move, just to kind of throw that out there. But offensively, very good pairing with Latios, and it gives them a fantastic speed stat, or I guess tier or niche. That's really, really nice. Also having Unburden is great to be able to absorb an item and then increase its speed even more. So he's got fast Pokemon. So I like this a lot. Very good offensive pairing. And Sneasler, I've used it in the past. It does what it does best, and it runs the same moves each and every week, and it does it very, very reliably. Lando T the King with Dragapult. What do you think about John's team from Jenny?
Hey, Landers is great. I feel like there's been Now, I won't lie to you and say he's not worse than before, right? He lost Knockoff, he lost Rock Polish, and he lost Toxic. All three very, very valuable moves in Lando's moveset before, but it doesn't change how good it is, right? It's a phenomenal Choice Scarfer. It's a phenomenal Stealth Rocker. It's great as a physically defensive pivot. Rocky Helmet Landers just doesn't feel like it ever dies to anything, and it really is incredibly obnoxious. It's a great U-turn mental grabber into Dragapult. Dragapult also sometimes struggles Steel types. I think Landers is a great answer into those. It's not necessarily like the conventional 1-2 punch of Dragapult plus offensive fighting, steel, or poison, but it's round 2, and at this point in the draft, like I said before, there's a lot of really good offensive fighting types on the board, especially the fact that me and Slacking just took one. John's pretty good at grabbing round 3 or 4 and be in a pretty comfortable position, especially if he didn't think that the fighting or the poison or the steel that he wants is going to Thomas. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind too, that John might have bid a little bit early on Landers, thinking that Thomas probably could potentially take it and didn't want his other things. Great Pokemon though. Again, great breaker as well with a Scarf or Band or Swords Dance or whatever it may be. And yeah, it's just that's all I like Lando T.
Yeah, we love Lando. So we have the second Ogerpon going in the second round. Very end last pick of the second round. Ogerpon, Wellspring, the water type Terra, or the water type mask, I should say. This cannot Terra, the water type mask. Water Grass, very good defensively, which is really nice, and very good offensively, with good coverage and things like Play Rough to come in on those dragon types that want to come in on the dual stabs, which is really nice. This was a snipe. I know for a fact because he left me his pick. He wanted Iron Hands, and unfortunately he had to kind of pivot around, and then this is like the scattered pick. He picked it kind of quick, so I don't know if it's something like I'm very curious to see what he says on his draft analysis of what he was thinking in this time in the draft, because he kind of scrambled a little bit. He was so set in on Iron Hands and kind of tossed him for a loop. So he does have Ogerpon Wellspring to pair off with the Gouging Fire, so he technically has his Fire Water Grass core. The Elemental core is in now, so defensively they cover each other very well upon their switch-ins for their super effective buttons, which is really nice. Good momentum for the team, and it's very nice to set up spikes. Gouging Fire is going to love having spikes up to be able to just click those really powerful attacks and possibly set up, which is really nice. And then it's got that water type Ivy Cudgel, which is really cool. It has that high crit rate, so very good Pokemon. Very end of round 2, right guys, we're going to snake back on. Now that round 2 is done, everyone has their quote-unquote core that you probably 90% of the time will see each and every matchup. These are the two guys that the team is built around. So we're gonna start to move a little bit quicker now here, kind of give a little bit of bullet points of each and every mon, but we think about it, how it fits, and then we'll go from there. I will say the Terra Captains have not been picked yet, so you'll probably start to see those coming pretty soon. When they do get picked, you'll see the little terrestrialized symbols underneath the Pokemon, and the little Terra graphic behind them will show up. So you'll be able to see who picks on their Terra Captains as we move on from there. So we're just gonna go ahead and snake on in. I'll let you go on the first one, bro. We have the next Pokemon is the very first pick of the 3rd round. The snake format for the Copenhagen Gallades is
Necrozma. Necrozma. This guy is awesome. I'm a big... Obviously, again, a Pokemon like Landorus generation. Losing Toxic and losing its ability to autotomize and boost its speed by 2 is a bit unfortunate, but that doesn't mean this thing isn't absolutely incredible. And the peak, like a peak example of versatility in Draft League format, right? Whether it be as a bulky stealth rocker, whether it be as a physically defensive pivot with a Rocky Helmet and the Morning Sun, and being a big nuisance like that. Whether it being physically offensive with Dragon Dance or Swords Dance as setup, whether it being specially offensive with Calm Mind, having a great signature move in Photon Geyser that completely ignores opposing abilities. If you have that unaware Clefable and you think that you can switch in on a Swords Dance up Necrozma and it clicks Photon Geyser and nukes you from really, really high up, is going to be really, really obnoxious and really difficult to deal with. And I think having a versatile Pokemon like this is going to be great on a team like Thomas's. Really does fit on so many different drafts. It also gives him rocks, which he doesn't have to this point. Now, I do always recommend getting a couple other rockers besides Necrozma, because it's not a Pokemon that's going to want to run them very often, because I want to click the setup button. I want to click the Swords Dance, the Dragon Dance, the Calm Mind, and try and win with it, or at least put a big hit in my opponent's team. So it's something to keep in mind, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's a great rocker.
Yeah, it really is. Necrozma is the end all be all. We got Chi-Yu! I had Chi-Yu in the previous BBR seasons. This Pokemon, once I learned that all you really need is just click the fire type button. It really just does click the fire type button. The Beads of Ruin is an incredibly broken ability, reducing the special defense by 30% of any Pokemon that is on the field aside from Chi-Yu. So it's able to click incredibly powerful moves, things like Overheat, things like Stab Dark Pulses that can threaten flinches. It has Nasty Plot to be able to set up and boost that special attack even higher. It's not as strong as its counterpart in Chien-Pao, but it's still incredibly powerful. And I think getting it at the very the very beginning of round 3 is crazy. This Pokemon can easily be the very end, if not middle of round 1. This is an easy Pokemon to build around, and it's a good pairing with Landorus. I love the fact that Landorus can U-turn out on the grass types, get the super effective damage on it, and then get nuked by a fire type attack, which is incredible, which is really nice for it. And pairing off with Dragapult in the back, very good team cooking up here. Now we have Kingambit, 3rd pick.
Lime Kingambit, really, really great Pokemon. Obviously, I love me some King. Latios and Sneasler, really, really helping out, picking off those defensive fairies, things like that for Latios. Really help picking off, a lot of the Pokemon that something like Sneasler isn't going to appreciate very much. Now, it is a Pokemon that really does appreciate the ability to Terra. It definitely becomes a little bit worse when it can't, but that doesn't mean it's not absolutely incredible. You can always patch on a Chopper, deal with that 4 times fighting weakness, and a lot of times you're going to live those fighting type attacks naturally because you're so damn bulky. Supreme Overlord obviously makes this thing just an absolute terror in prep, regardless of the matchup, right? No matter what is dark, if all 5 Pokemon are dead besides King Gambit and it sets up a Swords Dance, there's not really many things that are taking that Sucker Punch. So you need to be aptly prepared to be able to deal with those Sucker Punch mind game 50-50s, or lose the game, which can obviously be very scary. There's also a Stealth Rocker, which Matt didn't have up to this point, so that's obviously going to be a great aspect of this Pokemon and just great overall. Looks like next up we have my 3rd round pick, which is going to be Enamorus. I love Enamorus. This is a Pokemon that's returning to the team from last season. I love me some offensive fairies. I think Enamorus really doesn't have many switch-ins in the metagame, and I think it fits really well on this team. Again, we have something like Iron Hands that really supports it super well, in the sense that it really breaks down those steals that switch into our potentially our fairy stabs, things like that. Same thing with the poisons. Deoxys really bullying those things down, and Enamorus really taking care of those offensive darts that Deoxys doesn't appreciate, which is really solid. Also a solid speed tier, kind of bridging the gap between really fast and really slow, and we'll obviously fill in more gaps in between to, until that ends. But again, Enamorus, great Pokemon, physically, offensively, especially offensively mixed. Healing Wish is also a great aspect of it too. I love the move Healing Wish. I think it's very valuable. Pokemon like Iron Hands in the back.
Especially when it doesn't have a reliable recovery on its own. I got Corviknight. The reason I got Corviknight is because my guys, my zoo that I'm building right now, my ape and my bear, love to come in for free. And I really wanted a steel type. I personally value the steel type and the fairy type very highly. Like you'll notice I'll take them in my first couple picks. I prioritize them number 1, not only because fairies are at an absolute premium, but also in a way really good steel types are. So this is a really good Pokemon to be able to come in on the fairy type moves that want to attack the Annihilate, as well as being able to take semi hits from the fighting type attacks, which is really nice because it's part flying from the Ursaluna Blood Moon. But ideally, it's able to come in and kill the grass types. So Ursaluna Blood Moon doesn't really want to hit with those ground typings and having super effective damage on it. So it can come on in and does what it does best. It absorbs the hit, roosts it off, and U-turns out. And does a slow U-turn at that, so that way this can absorb the hit, not take too much damage from it, U-turn and get the guys in, which is really cool. It's a steel type that doesn't have rocks, and I do acknowledge that. My rocker right now is Annihilate, and that's not the most ideal formula for success. So I am gonna probably patch that up in the later rounds, but I wanted something to facilitate taking damage and then letting my guys come in for free. And speaking of the hazards, we have a Glomora.
Oh yeah, big one. Great. I mean, great hazard setter. I really like it on this. Appreciate rocks and spikes, and even T-spikes being up. I think Keldeo plus T-spikes is always a very annoying combo. The sub-com lines that we talked about earlier are really gonna love the passive chip that we're getting on opposing checks and threats. So that's obviously a great aspect, and obviously the Mortal Spin aspect. I think it's a great means of removing hazards when you have something like Ovan Heartflame on your team. It's not going to appreciate steel types. Opposing steel types, Glomora typically struggles with them. It's spun block by them, and they switch in really well to it. But we have 2 Pokemon that absolutely murder steel types in Ogerpon and Keldeo, so I think it's a solid pairing. It's also very good offensively on its own right. Rock Polish variants can be great offensive win cons. I got cooked a couple seasons ago by John's weakness policy, Rock Polish Glomora. So there's definitely more that you can do with this thing other than just setting up spikes and rocks and things like that. And I think as long as Braden uses it in that manner, I think it's going to be a great pickup for his team. So very good overall.
I like it. Glomora is a very good Pokemon. I had it recently in a Showdown League, and it literally does what it does best. And a surprise, offensive Glomora is taking people off guard. Trust me, it's a very strong Pokemon. Dragonite. Dragonite's not a Terra Captain, it's just a Dragonite, but it is just a Dragonite that is very good. Multi-scale is still multi-scale. It's still able to set up Dragon Dances and run away with the game. It could also be defensive. It doesn't have to be pigeonholed into that, like, I'm the Terra Captain, you're gonna lose to Terra Normal extreme speeds. It's able to have a little bit more versatility here, which is really cool in a creative builder's hands. T-Row is a fantastic battler. This dude is very fucking good at the game, so he has the mindset and the capabilities to make Dragonite really thrive. Having things like Special Dragonite, very fat Dragonite to roost things off, is a very nice Pokemon to be able to really sponge those hits that want to come in from the Samurott as well as the Iron Valiant. It's able to really facilitate some defensive prowess here as well as threaten some offensive capabilities, which is really cool in a guy like T-Row's hands. So this is terrifying, especially knowing how good T-Row is at the game. We got Primarina, the first, I believe this is the first fairy of this round. Yeah, the first fairy of this round. What do you think about Primarina on this team?
Great pickup. Great Pokemon. Obviously, offensively and the water fairy typing in particular this gen has been very good. Something like Azu has been something I've loved. Primarina just coming back in this DLC is going to be another Pokemon very similar, right? Whether it be defensively with like Calm Mind variants or Whirlpool Perish Trap sets, can be very, very difficult to deal with. But on top of that, there's obviously those choice specs where it's going to come in, click Moonblast and Hydro Pump, and kill something every single time, which is obviously very great. We have great means of getting it in with something like Iron Treads, being able to Volt Switch, get out, get into Primarina, and click a button, which is obviously a cool aspect of this guy. And like I said, whether it be Calm Mind draining, kissing up, or whether it be choice specs Moonblasting, this thing is going to be a big threat to a lot of teams. So good pickup from Aster here.
I like it very much. Latias ticks off in the third round. It is the little Latios that could. It's a very good Pokemon though. This is the bulkier counterpart to Latios. This Mon is very nice to pair up with the fighting type stabs that we have going on with the Zapdos, paired off with the Iron Boulder. I like this defensively for those two, which is really cool. It does still have recover, so it can still be that Pokemon to come in and soak up a hit and recover, shrug it off. And it's able to still set up on its own. It does have access to things like Calm Mind, Store Power, things of that nature. It did get Alluring Voice, which gives us some fairy type options, which is really, really cool for this Pokemon. Very good sponge for the team. Very good speed tier because we have a very fast Pokemon. This speed is actually kind of immaculate. We have the fastest Pokemon being Iron Boulder. We have Zapdos at 100 and this thing at base 110. So I love the speed tier climbings that he's doing. The tiers are looking good. He's able to run Modest in most matchups. He's able to run basically outspeeding the entire team in others. So I like this pairing a lot. This is a cool little team. It's a good start to the trio core for the Corollaries. I think it's great. Then we have Jirachi. Jirachi, tried and true on the Morpeko United. What you think about this one?
I like this pick a lot because I have never seen a weak 2 fairy start in my life with Great Tusk plus Greninja. So getting a great fairy immediately is going to be great. I think Jirachi also serves as a great ice resist on this team because our water right now is Gren, so having good ice resist for something like Great Tusk is great. Also a psychic resist, taking pressure off of Gren, coming hard in on psychic type so it doesn't get blown up by a focus blast. This thing is very solid. It's also another rocker, takes more pressure off of Great Tusk. It also passes Wishes into Great Tusk. I think this is a great pairing with Big Tusk right here for Obo. It can also obviously do the choice Jirachi thing and click Iron Head and Zen Headbutt and get some flinches and, you know, win con that way, but it can also Calm Mind and Cosmic Power Sweep. Really versatile Pokemon, as most psychic types typically end up being. And Jirachi in particular is probably the best one for Obo to draft for his draft in particular at this point. So this is a really good pickup here from Obo.
We got that dark psychic fighting core, that offensive core going on. Now we have Weavile, my boy. This is terrifying in Amel's hands. Let me give you guys a fucking 4-1-1. This Pokemon, dude, this is not Amel and how he typically drafts. This is Demon Amel. Amel's out here for a championship, bro. This dude's trying to win some shit. Weavile is a fantastic Pokemon. He's back. My boy was really, they just snipped his balls in Generation 9, and now they give him back. And so he's got triple
you do
axle.
that?
He's got knockoff. I guess so. You just snip him off and give him back. You have triple axle, we have knockoff. It's still got some good coverage. It's got low kick for the steel types. Very strong, very fast Pokemon. He's got a very good defensive core going, and now he has this offensive presence in Weavile. Priority and Ice Shard, very nice. And it does actually, I did not know this until I was binge watching some John Jr. content. I didn't know this thing got baton pass. I think that's kind of cool for Weavile to be able to baton pass out on a check that you're supposed to come in to soak a hip from Weavile.
Man,
and then it just baton passes
knock
out.
off and switch. Just knock off and switch. Just normal. Just knock off and
nice,
switch.
You know, it's a good option. it's cool to have on Weavile.
Draftly player click momentum. Here.
Fact.
Big Kyurem here for Viz.
Big Kyurem.
back, man. Now, see, again, Worst generation did lose access to Roost, but that doesn't mean that offensively, Kyurem isn't still the same it was last generation, whether it be with choice specs variants, Ice Beam, Freeze Dry, Earth Power, Draco, all you need, really all you need, no matter what. But also the ability to Dragon Dance and sweep with Bat. Now, this isn't a Terra Captain, so it is going to struggle into Steel types offensively, especially from the physically offensive side, so Dragon Dance won't be as potent, but those special sets are going to be great. The sub Roost sets aren't a thing anymore, they're a thing of the past, but you can definitely go sub Protect to attacks. That's a very viable option with pressure in this thing's immense bulk. With boots, it's great at, you know, not having to come in and take those hazard chips, things like that. Really, in my opinion, I think this thing is still, even without Roost, better than Baxcalibur. So getting it in round 3 is really solid, and it's also a Pokemon that is great on sand offense because of the fact of Pokemon like Excadrill being checked by bulky water and bulky grasses. I'm going to come in and click Freeze Dry and Ice Beam with my Kyurem, and you're going to have a bad time. And guess what checks Kyurem? Fat Steels and Fat Fairies. What is Excadrill Bully? That, right? So I think this is actually a great up from Viz. Really strong Pokemon. His speed tiers are getting a little clumpy right now. But that's not something he can't patch later on. But this team is very cool so far. I'm definitely really excited about this one from Viz.
This man has said that this mon's better Baxcalibur and moved on. I am upset.
It is. Yes, man.
Ogerpon, Conor Storm. Conor Storm. I think this is the 3rd mask out off the board, so all the masks are gone. The regular Ogerpon is left on the board. I personally like this one the best. I think it's really cool. Sturdy is nice to be able to have a lead matchup with it just clicking a button if you want to do hazards or get off a very powerful hit and then just die and live one hit like on a free focus sash, which is really cool. Being able to have the opportunity, if no hazards are up, to set up a Swords Dance, live any hit, and click the Trail Blaze, so that way you can, you know, get a little fast and a little speedy with some Swords Dance boosts. And the offensive IV Cudgel of Rock type is very nice. I think Ogerpon is fantastic, especially with the coverage that it has. It's a good little pairing that he has here with the Ursusu and the Goldango. So I like this pick a lot. I think this is a good time for it. My favorite, so we'll see how he does with it. Again, Panther, fantastic player. Then we have a Azumarill that's falling from grace just a little bit, but finally picked up in the 3rd round. What do you think?
Very good pick up here from Marcus. Like I said, I've been a big Azumarill gen because of all of the offensive dragons and have been like influx in. This thing is great at checking all of them. Very anti-meta Pokemon. And is going to be a great pairing on this team, whether it be with AV sets, whether it be with Choice Band sets, whether it be with more physically defensive, especially defensive Rest Talk variants, because you're playing the Chi-Yu or something like that, or just going belly drum and trying to win the game. You can really do it all. Great Pokemon overall, and is a great pairing, and it's also like a very Marcus Pokemon. I feel like he's drafting very comfort picks this draft. I'm not sure on how much he's used Garchomp, but I know Slowking Galar is like Marcus Mon, and I know he's used Azumarill a ton as well, so I think all of these options are going to be great for him, and not only like their synergy and, you know, all of that stuff, but also his comfortability with the team. It looks like he is going to really draft a solid team around what he knows he uses well, and I think that's also an important thing when it comes to draft. So great guy, great mom.
Yeah, you gotta feel comfortable with the drafts, guys. Subscribe to Marcus, guys, please, because he's got a team in draft league and another league where he has Slow King and Slow Bro. So this is a Marcus pick. Quackaball. We have the duck. We have an eagle, hawk, bird thing, plus a monkey, and now the duck. Quackaball, fantastic snowball killer at the end of the game, having access to Aqua Step to boost its speed for free, and having the hidden ability in Moxie to boost its attack every time it takes down an opponent. This is a very scary Pokemon. He's got reliable removal now with Rapid Spin, which is really cool. It can run very bulky sets with things like Roost. Fighting and water typing can be very good defensively, so it can run a lot of different sets. It doesn't have to be pigeonholed into that I'm going to win the game button, so it adds a little bit more of creativity to his team. It allows him a little more versatility to his team, I should say, which is really nice. It's got good coverage, very strong fighting type stab in close combat, so very good Pokemon. And Brave Bird to be able to hit the grass types, very good mom. I like Quackaball a lot. Very good pairing with this team. Raging Bolt to end out round 3. New toy squeezes through. What you think on Keegan's team?
This guy is awesome. I think he's super slept on right now. But I think people are super sleeping on this thing. It is way faster than we thought it was going to be at, what, base 75, whatever it is, which is an incredible tier for something as bulky as this is, with its really, really high HP stat and solid defenses, and really solid defensive typing too. Electric Dragon is a great defensive typing, so that's obviously a really, really clutch aspect of this guy here. On top of that, very strong, being able to Calm Mind up and win, having electric special, Sucker Punch, and Thunderclap is awesome, but also being able to Volt Switch and Draco. I mean, there's not really many that resist the dual stab combination of Electric and Dragon, so you don't really need the super effective coverage to hit ground types every single time they come in, because you're just going to Draco them anyways, right? Even mons like Excadrill that resist one of your stabs and immune to the other, have fun taking a Choice Specs Draco or a Protoss boosted Draco. Like, it's going to do a ridiculous amount of damage, so great pickup here for Keegan, and I think the other two Pokemon in his team really facilitated well with Spikes and Momentum.
Yeah, and John brings up a good point, which is a fun little meme that we got going on with Keegan, is he thinks that fairy types don't exist. So he once again gets the top 3 that are weak to fairy, and I think that's super funny. So we have the very beginning of round 4. We're gonna stay back on, guys. We have the cores built half of the Pokemon that you typically are gonna see week in, week out. This is a 6v6 format, a singles format, so which means that most of the time these first 3 you will see a lot. So now we have our accent pieces. We're gonna start to fill out some holes, so we're gonna start flying. The very first pick of round number 4, snaking back around for Limpet we have Clefable, which makes me so sad. I say this in round 4, right? Clefable sweep that around 4. Very good mon, the best in my opinion fairy in the format. Still does what it did in the past very well, having things like Magic Guard paired off with Life Orb to not take that recoil, or being able to come in for free on hazards is very nice for it. Access to Unaware, which means that if your opponent wants to boost up and try to win the game, Clefable comes in and doesn't know what happened. It does not affect Clefable at all, so it can still be the fat fairy type that it always has been, and just heal up on it with Moonlight, which is very nice. Has access to Wish for the rest of the team, which is really cool because as of to this point, he doesn't have anything to really keep our guys very healthy. So Wish is really cool for things like Raging Bolt that's already super dummy fat. And we've got a nice little fairy type to kind of glue this all together. So I think that Clefable's nice on this team. Ting-Lu! I love this mon. What'd you think about this mon on this team?
Ting-Lu. I really think this team does appreciate the hazard. We have a lot of momentum-based offense, lots of U-turn and point, so getting up spikes and rocks is going to be incredible for it, right? Really, really bulky Pokemon. Also, especially having a bulky Dark is really nice when you have dual offensive fighting with Quaquaval and Infernape. So that's a great, aspect for Nate here. I think he definitely wants to start thinking about Fairy Resist right now. His Fire type doesn't resist Fairy, and the rest of his team doesn't really appreciate him either. So that's something he's going to have to keep in mind going forward, but I think Ting-Lu's Hazards and Psychic Immunity is going to be great for the team. Also, its Ghost Resistance is going to be very valuable. Like we said before, Ghost is one of the best offensive typings in the game. So I think a good pick up here from Nate, and we'll see how he ends up continuing to round out the team.
Yeah, fairies are scarier, but it's the beginning of the draft, so we'll see how it goes. Superior, non-Terra Superior, very still good Pokemon. Contrary, boosted with Leaf Storms, very good Pokemon. Instead of having the drop, the -2 drop of special attack that Leaf Storm provides, it gives it a +2 in special attack because of Contrary, which is crazy. This Pokemon can really steamroll teams, getting very high damage on even a Steel type if you let it run away, which is very, very scary. It fills out a really good speed tier for him at base 1, I believe, is it 113? I'm pretty sure it's a little bit more than 111. So it's a very good speed tier here, and it's been able to outspeed a lot of stuff that want to come on in, and it's able to murder those water types that are going to come resistant for Azumarill and for Garchomp, which is a very good pairing off on this team. Very, very scary Pokemon. It does what it does best. I like it a lot. Iron Bundle with this late. Iron Bundle is a fantastic mon. I think that this is crazy. So from Iron Bundle and Owen will be right back, by he's gonna go take his puppy out. He's dog dad. Iron Bundle is a fantastic Pokemon. This mon coming in round 4, I think is absolutely, it's crazy. I say this and I'm in the league and I let it happen. Iron Bundle, so good. I passed it up for Ape, so and the Corviknight, so it is what it is. This Pokemon should have been gone round 1. Banned in the OU Smogon format. This Mon is very fast and it is very strong. A water and ice type has access to freeze dry. It has to run hydro pump for its water stab, which is its biggest drawback. If you are not afraid of missing your hydro pumps, then you draft Iron Bundle. This Pokemon is very fast. It's the fastest Paradox Pokemon to be able to come on in with a booster energy outspeed the entire team. But this is very, very scary. If you are a gambling human and you want to come on in and your win con is to land a hydro pump and you have bigger cojones than I do, so Iron Bundle is a fantastic mon if you could hit those hydro pumps. I like it a lot. We have Gardevoir showing up on this team. A little early for Gardevoir. What do you think about Gardevoir here?
Good offensive fairy, right? And I do think the teams don't draft defensive fairy. Is just I think that I look at Big Kigo. Like Kigo gets cooked by Specs Guard or Scarf Guard, not necessarily a Specs one, to be completely honest, but Scarf Guard is going to be really strong into a lot of teams. It's a great revenge killer, and Specs is going to be a breaker. Now, Guard does struggle defensively as a fairy a lot of the times, in my opinion, just due to its very bad Spadef or defense stat. But solid Spadef, it can wish. It can also do cool things like Destiny Bond and Trick, and a bunch of things. Honestly, great utility moves, despite not being the bulkiest fairy. And fairies are a hot commodity; they're hard to come by this generation. So getting a strong one is definitely a very valid thing to do at this point in the draft. Again, I think his team lacks a lot of natural speed, so he's gonna patch that out.
I like that. Lando. This is Landorus incarnate with sheer force, by the way. This is round 4 Lando. It's allowed and it fell to round 4. New toys going allows this demon to push a little bit further. Is it as scary as it was in the past? Not necessarily. It doesn't have rock polish, so it doesn't have that availability to just pick up and run with the game, but it does still have sheer force boosted moves, things like earth power, things like well, this mon in general, having things like checking like Sledge Wave to come in on those grass types is very, very nice. It's not the incredible threat it was in the past, but it is still, you have to switch in on those attacks. Having knockoff to remove those items that want to come in for the checks of Lando is also very handy, and U-turn for that momentum is great too. But this is a great breaker for the team. Grass types, he doesn't have to run the Sledge Wave if he doesn't fit it on the team, because he does have the Weavile, which is really, really nice. Amo's out here with the scary stuff. He brought 2 very bulky Pokemon that are able to have some versatility, along with 2 very powerful offensive threats. So this is a very, very scary Amo team. We got Iron Moth, man. What's going on here?
Again, great offensive piece here. More offensive answer to those fairy types, which I think is a really cool aspect. It's also going to bridge the speed gap, right? He has Grand, at 120 plus. And then we have Tusk and Jirachi a little bit slower, Jirachi at 100. Now we have the 110, so his speed here is definitely really, really solid right now. I'm a big Iron Moth enjoyer. I actually drafted the core of Iron Moth plus Great Tusk in season 5 of BBR. Now Iron Moth is Terra, and I think Iron Moth is another Pokemon that really does appreciate having a Terra attached to it, but that doesn't mean it's not, a great Pokemon. You can boost your special attack to be an absolute nuke while not being locked in or taking life or recoil. You can boost your speed and be a great speed alongside Fiery Dance, things like that. Or you can even set up an agility and try and win that way. Great with boots. It's also great with the Scarf and great with the Specs too. I think Specs Iron Moth is a Pokemon that is very, very threatening to a lot of teams. Poison plus Fire is a very strong offensive dual step combination, especially in consideration with the fact that you have Energy Ball, Dazzling Gleam, and even Discharge if you need it, which makes this thing very, very powerful, very strong, and great pickup overall for Obo's team here. Definitely a fun one.
We got Heatran coming up. Now we have a check to the fairy types. Fairy types are becoming a problem for most teams. And so I think that they're starting to pick up on it here. Heatran is one of the best steel types in the format. Fire and steel, great combination. Having access to things like Flash Fire to be even more of the fire and night nuisance for the team is really cool. It doesn't really mind on this team because we have a rock type and a dragon type, but for the most part, this is a great fairy switch in and fairy killer, which is really good for the team. This mon being able to set up stealth rocks is fantastic too, because at this point he didn't have a rocker. I don't think that the boulder has rocks, but if it did, it doesn't really want to run it very often, so being able to have a reliable rocker in Heatran is really cool. It doesn't do the toxic stuff it did in the past, but it does still have those Magma Storm sets, which is really cool for this team. It's a good pairing for those fairy types. And then we got Cinderace, which fell all the way to the 4th round.
Oh yeah, definitely a pretty crazy pickup here from piece. Very strong physically, offensive, which is great for Spectre and not having to will-o-wisp itself, powering up its own hexes and things like that. So that's great. But this thing really is going to thrive in a setting where it can run Choice Band and just click Pyro Ball, or stab U-turn as a libero, or stab high jump kick as a libero, gunk shot. It's crazy strong offensive coverage, and if we have a great rapid spinner in Iron Treads, we're really going to be able to do so a little bit more freely. We're not going to feel as forced to run boots on our Cinderace, which I think really lets it thrive and function as a phenomenal breaker and speed control Pokemon on this team.
And then we have Metagross coming up here with the Columbus Cobalion. Great steel type. It's one of Owen's favorites. So do you want to talk about Metagross a little bit more? I'm sure you know a little bit more about Metagross than I do. I haven't really dropped this one. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, great pickup here. I like it alongside Dragonite, Ice, and Fairy Resist. And if you look at the Heroes team, whether it be Ice or Fairy for all three of them, all of his Pokemon are weak to those typings, right? So Metagross is going to be a great glue piece in that regard. It's also a very reliable stealth rocker, allowing itself to, get them up pretty darn freely with its great defensive typing and stat spread. It could also win the game with agility sets and weakness policy and things like that. It got some great tools this generation. It got Psychic Fangs for stronger and more reliable physical Psychic Stab. No more Zen Headbutts, which is obviously very, very nice. It also got access to Knockoff in order to spread progress and force items off of checks and things like that. Again, great. I think this was actually like a perfect pickup for Tiro's team. I don't know if there's a team that Metagross would have been better with it, resisting both Fairy and Ice so well for the rest of the squad. So definitely a great pickup here for Tiro.
Or did bullet punch time, baby. We have Mandibuzz coming up here for the James River Jolteons. Mandibuzz did what Mandibuzz did in the past. It still has Toxic, it still has Roost, a little bit nerfed, but still Mandibuzz is a good defensive Pokemon to come on in and literally just soak up hits for days, roost things off, and then click U-turn to get in the scary guys, which is the Hearthflame Ogerpon and the Keldeo. I like the hazards aspect here with the Glimmora plus the Mandibuzz is really cool. He does have Defog. He does remove his side of the hazards as well, but it does have something that can reliably remove hazards outside of having Mortal Spin from the Glimmora. So he's got the hazard stuff checked up. I like this a lot. It's a good pairing, good defensive piece. It's a good piece for you able to get in those scary guys. So I like Mandibuzz on this team a lot. It still does what Mandibuzz does in the past, just not as good because of the roost. And then we have Ninetales. So for me, Ninetales Alola was one of those mons that I really, really wanted to prioritize. I was struggling with the Fairy, and I was thinking to myself, dang, I can't find one. And then I overlooked it and realized, oh dang, then I should probably grab it because I've gotten some pretty solid success. This generation, Gen 9, having the buff to snow on ice types for Ninetales Alola specifically, being able to set up the snow warning on its own upon switch in and having an instantaneous 50% boost to its defensive stat is very, very nice. It's also able to set up those Aurora Veils very reliably with things like four things like the Annihilate and the Ursaluna, which is really cool. I've got Corviknight to come on in and soak up those hits and get Ninetales in for free. It's able to facilitate its own breaking power with Nasty Plot after setting up an Aurora Veil. It has things like Encore, it has things like Hypnosis to just sleep the opponent and get in those guys. And Baton Pass. If there's a Steel type that's going to come in on Ninetales, click Baton Pass, it gets out and it's able to set up that Aurora Veil and the Snow for something I may have a little bit later on. So I think that Ninetales is fantastic with things like Freeze Dry. Very good mon. I like this mon a lot. I almost slept on it because I forgot that it was there. Now you got your Crook. The Crocodile.
Crocodile. If you look at my team right now, to one, get my ground, because I think a lot of them are going. To one, get a dark. I think it's always important to have tip, especially with something like Iron Hands on the team. And I also needed rocks. So my only rocks or hazards in general right now are Speed, and I've already kind of iterated that I don't really want to set up hazards with it. While it's great at doing so, it's not the most fun way or the most optimal way of using Dio and Draft. So getting Crocodile here is going to be a great Pokemon in doing so. This also gives me really reliable rocks. Intim is going to be great for Pokemon like Iron Hands and Amorous Dio to either set up and win or come in more freely and, just kind of click buttons. I love Crocodile. I think this thing is as reliable gets. And it's something I'll spam draft all the time. Also, again, a great speed tier for me. Kind of bridging the gap between Enam and Iron Hands. Alright, next we have Dr. Slacking picking up Manaphy here. More setup offense, and again, great speed. Then we got Manaphy here sitting at base 100. whether it be Take Heart, which is not banned here, and Tail Glow sets, obviously both sets being very, very viable and potentially just setting up and winning games. But there's also the aspect of Manaphy that people sleep on, and it's support roles, right? It can scald, it can U-turn and knock off and be a big, big nuisance. Hydration is also a very solid ability, but really where this thing is going to thrive is going to be setup variants and setting up and winning the game with Take Hearts and being really bulky and obnoxious, or setting up Tail Glows and being very offensive and clicking Surf, Tail Glow, Dazzling Gleam, Ice Beam, all of its great coverage that it does rock out with right now. So good pickup here by Slaking, always a fun Pokemon to use.
And it can run Take Heart. So Take Heart is the thing. You know, it is what it is. We have Scizor coming up here next. Scizor is a fantastic mon. Good piece to come in on those, yes. Them fairy types, which is really cool. Scizor is a good, reliable steel type. It lost Roost, which really sucks for it. So those bulky Scizors have been neutered just a little bit, but it does still do what it did in the past in regards to being able to set up Swords Dances and clean up games with things like Bullet Punch, which is really nice for it. It did get Bug Bite back, which is really cool. It has things like the dual wing beat back that it didn't have in the previous DLC, which is really cool for Scizor. Very good mon to pick up on this team. I think it's a good fit. I like Scizor a lot. I think it's a great steel type. And the last pick of round 4, Rotom Wash.
Big Rotom Wash. Now, this is double water, which I definitely think is interesting. Rotom Wash is very reliable. Bring in Gouging Fire, getting in there for free. I do struggle to see the reason for the redundancy with Ogerpon and it, in the sense that they both take on bulky waters and they both, you know, momentum to get in Gouging Fire, but it doesn't mean that Rotom is necessarily a bad pose. Definitely bulkier and a better bulky water than something like Ogre for sure, and obviously they share many different aspects, but I am interested to see how Thomas ends up using this to round out his draft and things similar, because this isn't the first Pokemon I thought he'd take right away. But we do have round 5 starting up ASAP, and we got Overgrowth coming next. I really like this pickup, actually, though. It's going to give him his Dark, it's going to give him a Grounded Poison, it's also going to give him plenty of hazards. Right now, he only has rocks on Necrozma, so getting the reliable spikes and T-Spikes is going to be great for Pokemon like Gouging Fire, but T-Spikes for something like Necrozma, Rotom Wash, even Ogerpon to an extent is going to be really valuable aspects to this team. I think it's going to really, really help out. Also an Intim Pokemon, so good physically defensive pivot to a lot of things with a Rocky Helmet, things like that, so good pickup.
I like Overcool. That's a good dark type. Dark types are starting to come, man. It's we got Slitherwing coming up here. This is not a dark type. This is a fighting and bug type Pokemon, but this is a very good Pokemon. I think that John may have dropped this in the past, and he found it as like a comfort pick, but he finally got his fighting type that he kind of had. Yeah, he got to like delayed on it a little bit. Realized the Slitherwing was there and pounced. This Pokemon is a very good. Has access to first impression for the bug type stab, things like close combat, U-turn that is also stab. This mon is very powerful, has Morning Sun for recovery, is a very good mon. It has Flare Blitz, which is a cool little niche thing that Slitherwing can run, but this is here to get rid of those dark types, to get rid of those normal types that Dragapult may want to get rid of, to help facilitate it just a little bit more. And it's also another momentum button. This is bug number 2, so he likes to collect the bug types, so we'll see how he's able to kind of fix that up a little bit later. He does have the Chi-Yu to be able to soak up those fire type attacks, but this is his fire type, this is fighting type that he's been wanting for the past couple of drafts, and he finally wanted to take it here in the 5th. What do you think about Glasgow?
Let's go. I love this pick on this team, especially because and King Gambit and the entire just loves the hazards that Gliscor can set up. Now again, Gliscor, no Roost generation, right? But it doesn't mean it's not great, and it doesn't mean that there weren't matchups in the past where Gliscor wasn't running Protect over Roost anyways, right? Because this thing is going to come in here, it's going to set up rocks, it can set up spikes this generation, which Latios, Sneasler, King Gambit, Manaphy, they all love. A hyper offensive setup spamming team like this really appreciates hazards being up throughout the game. It can also talk Protect and be a nuisance. It can also Swords Dance and Facade through a ton of teams as well, being ridiculously bulky, having a great speed tier 95, and just being an overall great Pokemon, man. I think Gliscor is still so good. I think people sleep on it a little bit. Next up, we have another Pokemon I think people sleep on, and something that I felt maybe I took a little bit early, but something that felt very, very necessary. Tentacool. Why did we take Tentacool so early? Well, if you look at my team right now, I am very weak. I really wanted to secure a very solid fairy resistant, especially that most of them are going to be especially offensive. I like the Spadessa out of Tentacool, really being able to take those on well, but this also gives me Rapid Spin, I had to move up to this point. And Pokemon like Enamorus don't like running boots. Pokemon like Iron Hands are typically going to have to run boots if you don't have great removal into Spike's heavy matchups. So getting Tentacruel is going to allow me to Rapid Spin those away. It also got access to Flip Turn this generation, giving me more momentum to get the other Pokemon on the team more freely, which again, I really, really do like. Very reliable Pokemon. Lost access to Scald, but gained a little bit more utility in Flip Turn, which I'm really, really appreciative of. And again, great Fairy Resist, great Pokemon overall.
Speaking of Mon to come in and switch on fairy attacks, this is not a resist, but it literally has 160 base defense. This Pokemon's so fucking bulky. Base 160 in both defense and speed def. I also thought the same thing. I needed just to have a Pokemon that's able to switch in. At this stage of the draft, I did have something to resist fire on my radar, because I am very weak to fire specifically, which isn't that incredibly common, but is still very good offensively. But I did want to pounce on Deoxys because it was either this that fits on the team or Uxie, and I did want to prioritize Deoxys just a little bit more for the aspect of it having teleport. Teleport was huge for it to come on in and just soak up a hit and have the negative priority to get out to one of my threats, as well as both spikes and stealth rock. Right now I needed that. I needed to be able to have that stacked aspect to it because my steel type doesn't want to set it up, and aside from that, my rocks are on annihilate. So I wanted a Pokemon to be able to set up hazards for me, and I think that Deoxys defense fits that mold perfectly. So I'm very excited. And we have
Archaladon next up here for Braden. Definitely a really fun pickup. I think again, another Pokemon that really Terra, but the fact that it can't Terra doesn't mean it's not great. Dragon Steel is such a good defensive typing. It's also such a good offensive typing. Offensively, this thing has crazy coverage just like Duraludon did in the past. It can Meteor Beam and Electro Shot with a Power Herb, giving it a +1 special attack and really letting it kind of clear teams. Has a solid speed stat as well, a lot faster than I thought this thing was going to be. He should be slower with the way he looks. He's a bridge. But regardless, stamina is a great ability. Yeah, he's a stamina beast too. He can obviously body press through things. Great Pokemon. Got cut off a little bit there, but I mean, it does so much. Great Pokemon. Next up we have Sandy Shocks. What do you think about Sandy Shocks?
Sandy Shocks is cool. Sandy Shocks is dope. I've seen you use it to perfection. It's a very nice Pokemon. Electric and ground. Good to set up the hazards, which he did not need more of, but hey, he wants more spikes and more stealth rock. They're very reliable setters so far. I like this a lot. It's able to help him with those bulky water type Pokemon, even though it doesn't want to come in on them. It's able to break them, which is really cool. Having a Pokemon that can run on lead with booster energy, being one of the faster Pokemon and set up hazards reliably, is actually really, really nice for it. It gets Volt Switch for that momentum, and having it be stab is really cool. This is a Pokemon that's able to do a lot of damage for things that don't want to come in on the mons that he has offensively, things like the Iron Valiant and the Samurott. So it's a cool little electric type Pokemon and a ground type that he really, really needed. He didn't have a ground type. I think the ground type is one of the most important typings that you should have on a draft, and this is a good little piece to him to kind of patch all that up all at once. So Sandy Shocks fits the mold really well. And look at that, there goes Uxie, just how I thought. The thing about Uxie on this
all reliable. Great one. I had Uxie PF, and I think it's a pickup, right? Great rocker, grabs great slow momentum in U-turn, and it's French. It taunt / encores and it U-turns. It does it so freaking well. It gives him another rocker to take a little bit of pressure off of Iron Treads, which a lot of time has pretty bad form moveset syndrome. Between its great offensive coverage, Rapid Spin, Stealth Rock, and Volt Switch, it really can't fit everything. So now the fact that it does not have to run Stealth Rock in a ton of matchups, because Uxie is as reliable as Rocking gets, makes it a really, really solid pickup for this team and for Aster here.
I like it. Rillaboom comes up next team. We have Rillaboom with Grassy Terrain paired off with Heatran. This is the good old tried and true Tapu Bulu Heatran core. Now with Rillaboom. Very good Pokemon. It did get its stuff back, and so it's still Rillaboom as it was at the very end of Gen 8, which is really nice. This Pokemon is a very solid breaker to remove the water types, which this team really does appreciate. And it's also able to get rid of those grass types very reliably with the aforementioned Heatran and the Zapdos. And this is a good pivot for him. Scald is at an all-time premium. It's not scattered around all over the place, so having a water resist that can easily come on in from those water type attacks is able to soak it up and then just U-turn out and get in the other guys is fantastic. Also, the passive recovery that Grassy Terrain offers is really nice here. I like this a lot. So Rillaboom is a fantastic pairing on this team. I think this is really good. Then we have the GOAT Bellibolt. What do you think about Bellibolt?
Our first ever captain. Look at
there it is.
Look at this fella. Look at this, dude, I love this guy. Now, 5, Belly Bolt. What in the hell? Why is he picking Belly Bolt so early? It's because I think this, in the low tier Terra format, is probably one of the premier Terra captains. This thing with the ability to change his typing into the water and fairy is going to make it ridiculously obnoxious to kill. I don't know if Kurt's probably asleep right now, but he probably just like smiled in his sleep and just had a pleasant dream thinking a big Belly Bolt here. This thing is really freaking good, especially when you can play around with the typings, give it stab, money water, give it a Terra Blast option. This thing is, oh man, I love this guy. What a good fella. Really, really good pickup here from Obo. I've seen this thing have a ton of success in low tier Terra format, so great pickup here.
I like it. First Terra Captain off the board. That's what the Terra looks like. I'm going to show you guys again. Terra Captain, we have Water Fairy. That's what it looks like with the first one coming off the board. Fantastic pick. Sylveon shows up next. Fairy types at a premium, as we've talked about before. Sylveon is all reliable. Unfortunately, this stripped our friend here of the Mystical Fires, which means that steel types kind of come in for free on Sylveon, but nonetheless, Pixelate boosted Hyper Voices still hurt. It still does a good chunk of damage. Has access to Baton Pass to be able to soak up a hit and pass those wishes off to things like the Terapagos, which would like to retain its Terra Shell ability, which is really cool. So now is a little bit of element to Amol's game here. So we can keep the bulky guys in the front nice and healthy, while the too scary 3rd and 4th round picks are here to clean up the game. So very terrifying Pokemon, especially in Amol's hands. And officially, they're all gone. Ogerpon.
There he is. Now, I really like the speed dash. The fastest thing naturally on Viz's team right now. Now, I should probably get something a little bit faster than this, but this is a great start. I also love having a great grass alongside something like Excadrill, allowing it to really beat down waters, which is going to be one of the main things that Drill doesn't, or even grasses. Like Ogerpon can come in, really take the grass hit. Spikes for Excadrill, which he didn't have any spikes up to this point, which Pokemon like Kyurem, Drill, Gardevoir really love, but also U-turn out. Define is a great ability. It's going to be anti-intim, so if you're team to check that Excadrill, it doubles in and catches that Defiant boost. That Ivy Cudgel is going to freaking hurt. And yeah, you might take it, but then Drill's going to go to town later on. So I really do like this pickup for Viz's team. It's a great spiker, great speed, great mon.
I like it. Talonflame. Talonflame is tried and true. Everyone loves Talonflame. In my personal opinion, I think Talonflame is a fucking fantastic Pokemon. And it's a Terra Captain for the Carolina Clefable. We have the ground and the grass type Terra for Talonflame. So Talonflame is a really premier speed stat at 126, which is really cool. Very fast Pokemon, and it does have Gale Wings now, so I do love the fact that he can Terra into a ground type, come on in, roost on the hazards, which is going to be resistant on the rocks, which is really cool. Went from a weakness to rocks and now has a resistance to rocks, being a ground type, and maintain the Gale Wings ability after some roost. Could be something niche that Talonflame can run, but it's a very fast Terra Captain that I think fits on well on this team. It's able to really nuke those Pokemon that want to come in and threaten Talonflame, and again, being able to Terra and get out of that fire and flying typing for those hazards, not having to be pigeonholed into being boots each and every week, I think it's a cool little element for Talonflame to really boost it being a Terra Captain, which is nice. And now we have another Firefly in Moltres.
Big pickup here. Now I really like this pickup from Marcus. This is a great to pair alongside the Glow King ground, so you can kind of come in and really make. And when you have a Garchomp, that's going to be a really nice thing, obviously. So great pivot. It almost resists ice with great Spadef as well, which is again great for Garchomp. We're able to come in, U-turn out, great grass resist, great bulky pivot, but also offensively, Moltres can be very strong. Do you feel comfortable enough to run Specs Moltres in the matchup? Dude, that's what do. And like Overheat, I got Scorching Sands back this generation, so your Heatran is no longer a check or pivot or switching. We can always just nuke that thing in that regards. So great Pokemon overall. Definitely like Moltres a lot, and I think it fits the team well.
Reuniclus comes up next, 5th overall pick for the New York Noibats. This is the bulky psychic type that everybody hates. It can come in and set up and just win the game from there. Access to Trick Room, access to abilities like Regenerator and Magic Guard. Very good, very reliable Pokemon. Nate was on the theme that like, hey, I'm gonna go back in time and bring back the Pokemon that I did really well with. So now he has Reuniclus, the Infernape, and the Tornadus from Generation 7 that he is very much so comfortable with. So I see the vibe here. I know that he's getting some comfort picks. I can see that he's trying to mix in some new stuff. He still has the pretty bad fairy weakness, which is most teams right now do. But I do like the comfortability that he's putting on his team. That way he can set set himself up for success, which is a big element in draft. If you're confident in the matchup, you're most likely going to do pretty well. And then next we have Skeledirge.
Skeledirge, look at that! A fairy resist. Definitely a really solid pickup here in Big Kiko. He got the double unaware core, Clef and Skeledirge potentially, which is a really cool aspect. Also the double Gen 9 stars. This team is very aesthetically pleasing to look at. It's got a lot of fun, colorful mons. Dirge is obviously a great Pokemon, being a great defensive check to so many different things. Having that physically defensive Dirge and that special defensive Clef or vice versa is going to be very obnoxious for a lot of teams to break and deal with. This thing is going to Willows things, it's going to Hex things, it's going to compound boost with Torch Song. Now, it is not Terra, it was not allowed to Terra, this thing is disgusting with Terra, but that doesn't mean it's bad without it, right? And this is definitely going to be a solid pickup for Keegan's team. It was pretty fairy weak at this point, so getting that fairy resistance is going to be really nice for him.
All right, team, here we go. We have round number 6. We are at the halfway point, which means we're going to start flying. And what I love about this moving forward is that the party ain't stopping. There are a lot of teams that do have Terra Captains yet. So now it's time to see what they've revealed and want to have for their Terra Captain for this season. On the wheel pick, we have Keegan and the Olympic Flagon taking the Steel and Psychic-type Pokemon in Bronzong. Very good defensive piece. I see the defensive course. It's it's some very fat Pokemon he picked up at the very end. I like Bronzong a lot. It's a kind of passive, but it still has some availability to kind of circumvent some things that it got in Generation 9, like Body Press, which is really nice if you find a very bulky Bronzong that comes on in, sets up an iron defense. All of a sudden hits it with a boosted Body Press is really cool. This is a very good mon to come in on ground types, ironically enough, with the Levitate ability outside of Excadrill. This is a good ground type check. So I like the defensive aspect here with Bronzong, so I think it fits really well. And we have Flygon after the Flygons coming in. This is Terra Cap.
There you go. You just missed. But this is also a Terra Cap point here from Nate. Really solid type. Means this thing essentially has no weaknesses when it's an electric and has very minimal steel type, as well as gaining a resistance to the ice and the fairy types that are kind of typically peated down otherwise. So really solid pickup. Now I do know that this thing did lose Roost this generation, which sucks for Flygon. He really appreciated that recovery, but it can now Stealth Rock as well. So this gives a second or a third Stealth Rocker on top of Tinglu, which is going to need Stealth Rocker most of the time, and Fernape, which never really wants to, but I think it's a really solid aspect. This is a great Scarfer, great Dragon Sweeper, and it's always nice to be able to set up and win with your Herder Terra buttons. So really solid Pokemon.
And we have Roaring Moon coming in. We have Owen's mascot. Roaring Moon coming in with no Terra, but still being a very offensive Pokemon, having access to knock off now, booster energy shenanigans to come on in and get powerful hits, and be a Spadef Sponge, which is kind of nice, having access to Roost for some longevity. Roaring Moon can still can facilitate a lot of this team, which is really cool. It fills in a really nice speed tier for him. His speed's looking kind of nice right now, which is cool at 102 with Garchomp, 111, 113, I believe, with the Superior, and then we have 119 with the Roaring Moon. Very nice here, along with booster energy. Could be some shenanigans going on, but it's a great breaker for the team. And then we got more Photosynthesis coming in.
There we go, big Scream Tail. This is great utility for Panthers team right here. The speed gap, his team sitting at 120 plus. We have Big Bundle. Now we have Screen Tail, another very fast Pokemon. It's going to be a great utility piece for this team, wishing up things like offensive Goldangos, wishing things like Urshifus, Thunder Waving things, Encoring things, grabbing great momentum into the rest of the team, even setting up dual screens potentially for the rest of the squad makes this thing a very potent support piece. Again, can be a little bit passive a lot of times offensively, but I think Screamtail never really feels very passive, and I guess really isn't, in the sense that you always can kind of fast Encore things, Thunder Wave things, be a big nuisance. You also have great offensive coverage, so if you need to hit something super effective, make sure it's not subbing and setting up on you, you can do so. So great Pokemon. I'm a big Screamtail believer.
I like it. Urshifu Rapid Strike, 6th round Urshifu Rapid Strike. Very good offensive Pokemon. This thing fell and it's kind of squeaked through the cracks. Very strong water and fighting type Pokemon. Again, literally had an item tailor-made for the thing in the Punching Glove, which is crazy to boost those surging strikes. This mon is very powerful, very strong. It's a good breaker for the team. You don't want it to be your only water, so you probably going to want to grab one a little bit later on for the bulkier water to element aspect to it. But this is a very good Pokemon to come on in and be a good breaker for him, and paired off with Excadrill is very nice. They do both get checked by grass types, but then we have Zapdos and Kyurem that is on the team. So this is a very powerful team off rip, and I like the offensive elements of the team. And then we have Garganacl coming in. What do you think about Garganacl?
Garganacl. Not my favorite Pokemon in the world, right? I function to its fullest capabilities, but we're doing low tier Terra, so big annoying one though, and I think obviously Ghost Resist as well as kind of a status absorber of sorts is going to be very nice for big Garb right here. Salt Cure is a really annoying aspect to it, being able to really whittle things down. Take that into account with Pokemon like Pekarunt that are going to kind of sit in the back and really whittle things down with Poison and Nightshade and things like that. It really adds a really annoying defensive aspect to this thing, to this team, with Pokemon like Sylveon keeping everything healthy, really making it to where something like Terapagos can come in, potentially Calm Mind up and win the game, as it lacks an immediate power but has the move pool and the set of capabilities to win otherwise. So I think that's a cool aspect of this. Gives a Ghost Resist too, which takes a little bit of pressure off of the Terapagos.
And then Hydrapple comes in, which is the Pokemon that was on my radar from the very beginning of the draft, and my draft obviously kind of took a turn a little bit. So I was gonna take it just to take it, honestly. This is the round where it's gonna be like, okay, I'm just gonna grab Hydrapple because I just want to grab him. But this Pokemon fits really well on this team. It's a grass and dragon type with the ability of Regenerator. It's able to literally soak up many hits. It probably shouldn't with the Salt Vest, and is a very cool Pokemon with a very unique move in Fickle Beam. It's a base 80 dragon type move that 30% of the time it'll double in power for free. It's just gonna be 160 base for no reason. So if you can catch all 5 heads coming out, that's gonna hit with crazy damage. I think Hydrapple is a very slept on Pokemon, and I'm very curious to see how it performs for the first time coming in on draft. And then we have
Drippity next. This is gonna be Dell's Terra Captain. It looks like he has the ferret, or not ferret, the fairy and grass typing right here. I do like this pickup a lot for Big Dell. It takes a little pressure off Heatran defensively, which is obviously very nice. It's going to be a great defensive pivot in a lot of matchups. Dr. Chain is such an obnoxious ability. Being able to U-turn on something and get badly poison it is really ridiculous and obnoxious. On top of that, it can Calm Mind with Sweep. It can also run Technician sets with moves like Beat Up and things of the sort, which can make it pretty darn fun offensively. It is going to kind of lack in the damage output though, so a lot of times you're going to see this thing with Assault Vest, you're going to see this thing with like Boots and being very Spadef. Has very reliable recovery. Just kind of more so rounds out the defensive aspect of the team, which is really cool. So good pickup so far. Next up, it looks like we have Scrafty here from Aster in his Montreal Hospitals. There's also Poison and Fairy typing. Poison is going to be great for on those Fairy types that think they 4 times hit you really hard. And then Fairy is just a great defensive typing neutrally. It's going to allow it to take on many more things. But I love Scrafty even without Terra. I think this thing's great. Him and Shedskin are both incredible defensive abilities. Moxie has a very strong offensive ability. You have the option to Dragon Dance up and potentially try and win the game that way, or bulk up and try and win the game that way, or be very defensive and be a defensive, Terra and deal with whatever your opponent really wants to, throw at you, which I think is a really cool aspect. I love this mon. I think it's great. It's going to knock things off, be a nuisance, and be a great Pokemon.
Shout out to Owen for being on the fly whenever the mic cuts out. It's fucking cold, guys. It's still 30 degrees and it's 9:30 in San Diego. Zarude comes up next. We have round 6 Zarude. Very good Pokemon. Incredible buff and knockoff. This mon getting knockoff is so good for it. It's a great reliable Pokemon. We have grass and dark typing. Great speed tier. The speed tier for the team, which is cool. Good pivot momentum in U-turn. Strong breaker with things like close combat. Very strong breaker. It's a second dark type, so it makes sense. It could be a dark type that wants to be a dark type versus Hisuian Samurott to be able to check things that dark types want to check. I see the aspect here. I love the fact that it's able to help break bulky water types, which is really nice that the team relatively struggles with because of the Metagross and the fucking Magneton. What's the Magneton thing called again? Oh my lord, I'm blanking on them real quick. It's the Sandy Shocks. There we go. Brain's working. But I love Zarude a lot. Very good fit on this team. What do you think about the Hatterene?
I think it's a solid pickup. I think Hatterene's seen a big rise in usage this generation. So it's anti-hazard
kind of capabilities, and I like that aspect for this team. And right, we have Defog Amanda, but we don't really want to click it because we want to Hazard Jack with Glamora. We have Mortal Spin and Glamora, but it doesn't really often get to click Mortal Spin or bring it even. So I like Hatterene as an anti-hazard team, especially because the team hates spikes and Ogerpon hates any kind of hazards, but especially rocks. So being able to switch these in on hazards is going to be great. And the Eject Button Hatterene is going to be one of Brayden's best friends this season, allowing him to get free switch-ins to his Ogerpon on those ground types that either try and set up rocks or attack into Hatterene, do a good 30% with Earthquake, send him out into Keldeo or Ogerpon to gain offensive momentum and initiative. It also can baton pass and Misty Explosion for pseudo momentum and things like that. So great Pokemon overall. I have no complaints with Hatterene here.
And this Pokemon was the one for me from off rip. I wanted Blastoise so bad, so I'm super happy that it fell to me in round 6. This Pokemon is a very, very, very good versatile water type that's able to come in and be very bulky and has access to Flip Turn now, so it can chew hits, Flip Turn on now, and facilitate the bear and the ape, which is fantastic. And it also has a little bit of an element of a Shell Smash Sweeper. It's not the strongest thing in the world, but depending on the matchup and how things are going towards the middle or end game, I can come on in with an Aurora Veil up and set up a Shell Smash, and Blastoise can do the dirty, which is really cool. It's got great coverage. It did lose Scald, which I actually found out after the draft, which is unfortunate, but it doesn't it sucks for it. It really does. I'm not gonna say it doesn't need it, because it definitely does, but it sucks for it. But it doesn't need to run Scald each and every week. It has the versatility to switch things up, which is really cool. So I love the element to be able to have that versatility with Blastoise, which is really great. Got your Terra Captain.
Big Dunsparce. I think this thing is probably top 5 Terra Captain in general on the board. There were some really but in the top 5 rounds, I didn't think they were great options for my team in particular, but I did like the Dunsparce a lot because it gave me a Ghost Immunity. I have a Ghost Resistant Crocodile, which I forgot to mention when I got it, but that's a big reason why we drafted it. Now I have an Immunity pre-Terra, which is great. I also have another Stealth Rocker. I have Glare for speed control, which is going to be awesome, but also a great setup sweeper, and especially when I can flip the script, go Ghost, and not be weak to close combat anymore, completely flip my weakness into Immunity. Or Water is a great defensive typing and a more bulky water with reliable recovery. I can set up Calm Minds, I can set up Coils, and I can potentially win the game that way. I love to Dunsparce's Pokemon. I've been spamming all gen. This is Gen 9 Licky for me. I use it all the time, and I'm really excited to be able to use Terra this season in the BBR. This is the second time I've drafted in BBR too. I drafted in Season 4, the first season of Gen 9, so definitely excited for him to come back to the Carolina Roaring Moon in the BBR, hopefully bring us to the championship.
We have Wheezing Galar showing up for the Cotswold Winter Cots. We have Fairy Poison. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think it's good at what it does. It has a huge buff this time around with the DLC. The boosted gas. Neutralizing gas now eliminates the effect of photosynthesis, which is, and the Quark Drive, which is kind of nuts for those very pesky Paradox Pokemon. That's another little element to add to Wheezing Galar to be able to shut off abilities, and for the team it looks really good. A good defensive piece. It's a good pairing off here with the Gliscor, which is really nice. It has really great abilities outside of the neutralizing gas. It's got Misty Terrain, so that way it can set up and not get his Manaphy status, which is really cool for it. And Levitate to remove one of its weaknesses, which is fantastic for it. And being ground weak, and all of a sudden its Levitate, it comes in, now it's not ground weak, which is a very good element for the Wheezing. I think it's a good pickup for this team. What do you think about Kilowattrel and Johnston?
Kilowattrel, this is John's bread and butter. I mean, he loves it. It is a pretty incredible Pokemon. Definitely one of the best Pokemon that we allowed. I like its speed aspect, again, kind of bridging the gap a little bit between that Pult and the rest of his team. Now, he probably needs something a little bit nicer to you at that 110-ish mark, but still a great Pokemon. Flying is going to make those Hurrians ridiculously strong, and Water is great not only to hit ground types offensively, but also the fact that you're a Volt Absorb Pokemon. Being Volt Absorb with pure water typing is going to be very, very nice. You're really cutting down all of the weaknesses that you have, and the grass types that would hit you super effectively, you nuke with Hurricane still, because it's still stab boosted Hurricane, so it really makes this Pokemon a big, big nuisance. Something you kind of have to revenge offensively and not really defensively check super well, so great Pokemon here from John.
We have Diancie, which is one of the better Terra Captains in my personal opinion. It was on my radar to be able to remove the rock typing and being as bulky as it is and be a pure fairy type, and then double boost of those Moonblasts are really cool. Having access to Terra into a water type is also fantastic for it, which makes it even more of a bulky nuisance. So fantastic Terra type captain here. This mod with Trick Room is actually really nice to be a sweeper. It pairs off really well with the Necrozma, which is great. Diancie also is able to set up both hazards in Stealth Rock and Spikes. So it's got that utility aspect to it, which is fantastic. I like this as a Terra captain. It fits in really, really well. It's able to really do what it does very reliably, and having a premium fairy type is really good, and it also saves them a lot of points, which is fantastic as a Terra captain. And rolling right in, guys, we're going into round number 7. On the wheel we have Donphan. I'll pick this one up from here. Donphan is a fantastic Pokemon to come on in and literally get rid of hazards. It's a very bulky defensively, and it has a very good offensive prowess too. Has access to priority and Ice Shard, great coverage, knockoff things like Play Rough is really, really nice for it. It's got great coverage, and removing hazards is all you really want from a defensive Pokemon. It's a very reliable spinner. It's one of the best spinners in this generation. You would say the top 3 are the Donphan forms, and this one coming in round number 7 is really good for the Copenhagen Gallades. Great mod. Speaking of great fairy types, what you think about Tinkaton?
Oh, Tinky Binky. John needed a fairy type. What else can you do, right? I'm not the biggest Tinkaton fan. Do something that John really bad, and that is going to be a fairy type. Smoked by a lot of offensive dragons, as most of them have to flamethrower and nuke through Scizor. So that's obviously nice. Now the Tinkaton isn't weak to flamethrower, but it's not going to die to right? So that helps out a lot. I like the Thunderwave aspect, but also rocks. John really doesn't have much hazard support, which I think you really, really want with a Pokemon like Tinglu, with Pokemon like Dragapult. He really doesn't have that spiking aspect, and really only have one rocker and Landorus. So getting another reliable rocker is going to be very nice for his team here. Again, getting that steel type and getting another fairy is getting a fairy type is also clutch for him.
Yeah, we have the Terra captain that got sniped. I'm starting to get sniped. I'm gonna complain a lot. I'm a bitch fit here in a couple minutes because I got sniped left and right. Lokix was the #1 Terra captain that was on my radar here. The second one I did end up getting, but Lokix is, I think, one of the best, if not top 3 Terra captains that we allowed. This Pokemon hits like a fucking truck. This thing's so powerful with its Tinted Lens ability, having the dual stabs that it does, and priority and things like First Impression and Sucker Punch, U-turns for that momentum. It really only has to run Dark and Bug type moves, which is fantastic for this mon. Having access to set up and run away with teams is really, really good, and having the ability to Terra into its literal dual stabs, because all it really needs is, again, because of the Tinted Lens, is this dual stabs. So if you want stronger First Impressions, go Terra Bug. If you want stronger Dark type moves, go Terra Dark. It's very easy Pokemon to work around with. It just clicks buttons and it really starts to rip apart teams. And you got your keys.
Big keys. Now, for my team, again, as you guys have kind of noticed, there's not a lot of steel types left. I really want a spiking aspect myself. Again, I understand Deoxys gets spikes, but I want to spike for my Deoxys. I don't want to have my Deoxys spike for itself. So Keys is going to give me Prankster Spikes. It also gives me a more defensive fairy. And originally I was going to go Ghost and Fairy on my Dunsparce for my typings because I wanted a more defensive fairy, right? Enam's not the best dragon check, and I felt that last season when it was my only fairy. But getting Klefki is going to make it to where I can kind of go a defensive water type on my my Dunsparce, which I really, really liked. I love the Prankster Thunderwave. I love being able to dual screen up for my threats on the team, like Dunsparce, like Deoxys, like Iron Hands, like Enamorous, even like Crocodile with bulk up variants and things like that. So I'm definitely really, really big on Keys going right here for the team. I've been a big Klefki fan on though. I think it's great anti-cheese. Also love the switcheroo Lagging Tail sets.
That's clear. So now that my Lokix is gone, we decided to jump after the Jolteon. Primarily because this was going to be my primary backup for Lokix, and then right behind us is Brayden, and this thing ain't going to come back. I wanted some speed. If we don't have power, for me personally, my Terra Captain, I wanted to go offensive. Owen went defensive route with his Dunsparce, and I definitely agree it's one of the best Terra Captains that we did allow. So I wanted to go for an offensive side. That's why I wanted Lokix, so I figured how I go offensive with some speed, because right now I don't have much of it. The best way, in my personal opinion, is going to be this Jolteon. Having access to being a Terra Captain with the Ice typing is incredible for Bolt Beam coverage. Thunderbolt plus now Terra Ice literally hits the entire metagame for either super effective or neutral damage. And the reason that we went grass, which actually was going to be water at one point, we ended up doing grass, and you guys will see a little bit later why. Now I can not get walled by any kind of ground type whatsoever, so I always will get super effective or neutral coverage against everything that my opponents want to come with. and probably outspeeded at base 130. So I wanted something very fast and really clean up the game. They gave us some buffs. They have Calm Mind. We have Alluring Voice for some fairy type, Stab to hit the dragon types, which is really cool. And it has Wish. It's not very big wishes, but it's a wish nonetheless if I need it for my ape. I think it fits the team really, really well. So overall, I think it turned out a little bit better. And then now we have Raikou because of the snipe. So what do you think about Raikou here?
There you go. Raikou's definitely a solid Pokemon. I think access scald. I don't know why my Tentacruel can't fucking scald when he's. But hey, thanks Pokemon. Definitely great balancing decisions here. But it's very solid. But again, it can Volt Switch around. I like the speed aspect too, giving him something faster than 110. I think it's okay to have 115 as your fastest Pokemon in Generation 9. Speed is a hot commodity. It's very hard to get that top end speed on every single team. There's a ton of Pokemon that are that fast, so 115 seems about right. It also really helps out with bulky waters on this team. Right now, we really only had Ocean to reliably break through all of them, and Raikou's going to be able to do so. It can Calm Mind. I think this is where it's best set in Subtoxic, the BVR Classic Subtoxic Raikou. But it's still an okay Pokemon, not the big, but I think it makes sense on the team for Braden here.
Ojo Vinus canceled. Typhlosion Hisui comes off here. We have Typhlosion is very good Pokemon. Very good special breaker for the team. Being able to spam very reliable Shadow Balls. Having things like Eruption on this mon is really good. Overheat's also great as well. It's I think that its move that it has is Infernal Parade, that when it's got a high chance to burn, and if it's already burned it does double damage, which is crazy on Typhlosion. Very good breaker for the team, which is nice. It's a good spin blocker, which he didn't have before, because he does have a very reliable sense to set up hazards, especially with the Hisuian Samurott. Rapid Spin's gonna come against his team, so Typhlosion being able to come in and block those and threaten with a very strong attack is very nice for T-Row. I got your boy
Mence. Great Pokemon, great speed too. Up to the incredibly strong Pokemon. People think Salamence, they think Dragon Dance, Wincon, which yeah, for sure, great at it. But not only that, it's a great Scarfer with Moxie. I think it's great as the Dragon Dance sweeper that we're mentioning. It's great, especially offensively with a really strong stat, and it's incredibly bulky. It can't wish like it used to in the past, I don't think. But still a great Pokemon. I absolutely love Mence. So great Pokemon. I'm sure I'm the most biased person to talk about it, but there's no such thing as bad spit.
I like Mence a lot too. Ursaluna, which is falling 7, which is crazy. Like last DLC, this thing was in first rounds of everyone's draft, but now it's been pushed to the back. I think it kind of slipped through the cracks, and it's a fantastic pick on this team. Del's team is looking kind of scary. Having access to Headlong Rush does not get neutered by the grassy terrain, and having such a bulky Pokemon being able to come on in and get some passive recovery is really cool for the Ursaluna. Great normal type, great ground type, good pairing for this team. I like this a lot. This is a good pick. This is scary. I like this forecast a lot. Speaking of chunky bears.
Oh, big. He's a bear, I guess. Yeah, he is a bear. That is big Snorlax right here. I like this pickup a lot as Ghost Entity on the Ninja. So that's obviously a very clutch aspect to it. Very bulky special ball that shades wishes potentially from things like Jirachi. I think it's actually a pretty cool fat blob defensive core with something like the Belly Bolt. So I like how Obo's team's actually rounding out defensively alongside things like Hydrapple, Jirachi, Belly Bolt, and Snorlax. Really great Pokemon. So yeah,
good defensive pieces. This is nuts. I don't know, man. I like this Terra Captain. I think we've probably hit like the top ones already. This Pokemon with Water Bubble and Terra Water, kind of gross. I also noticed that my man does not have a Steel type, because now he's going to have a Terra Steel Araquanid, which is kind of cool because now with the Water Bubble ability, it reduces the damage output from Fire types, which is a nice little plus to Steel typing, one of the best, if not the best typing in the game outside of Fairy. But with Water Bubble boosted moves coming from a Terra Water Araquanid is going to be nuts. It's got a 2x multiplier already because of the ability, plus the 2x multiplier you're going to get from the Terra. This Mon is going to kill things. You expect it to be bulky, but it comes in with the Choice Band and it hits dummy hard. And it also has access to Stucky Webs, which this team really appreciates with things like Weavile and things like Lando because of the speed aspect of it. It's able to outspeed the majority of the teams and hit things with that Earth Power. Very good pick for this team. Very scary pick. You got T-Tar next. Think about T-Tar.
We finally got our sand aspect, which is great. Again, we kind of expected up to this point. When you drop drill, you typically assume sand is. I think it's actually very, very slow to knock. It's a huge buff to our big guy right here, really allowing it to force progress for itself, will down opposing checks to things like extra drill to work. Extra drill can come in and win the game. This thing is great with stealth rocks, it's great with an assault vest, it's great as a dragon dance sweeper, as a rock polish sweeper, or most likely on this team a lot of time is going to be that smooth rock, annoying, bulky pivot with knockoff and thunder wave and great coverage and being a big tool. Great Pokemon, love it a lot.
And Clodsire, very good. He's just happy to be here, guys. That's the face you want to love. Clodsire is the poison and ground type. Very good mon. It sets up hazards. It's just basically what it does. It spikes. It's stealth rock. This mon soaks up hits. It's got unaware. Very good Pokemon. It is a poison type that is touching the floor, which means it's able to soak up toxic spikes on Panther's side, which is really nice for the team. And it's a fantastic Pokemon to pair up with Goldango to help deal with fairies that Urshifu does not want to deal with, which is really cool. I love Panther's either been in people's DMs or has done very good in his homework. He has really studied up on the metagame because his team is looking really nice. It's a very standard Gen 9 team that is very scary. There's a lot of really scary aspects to this team, so he's done his homework and he's doing really well coming back.
Next up, we have Mew here. Picture versatility. I really think that Mew, despite people not wanting to run it this way, in Gen 9 it really thrives in kind of that utility. As well as like setup sweeping, obviously you can, boost speed, boost attack, boost special attack, all that fun stuff. But I think of this team in particular that really only has hazard setting Garchomp up to this point. I think Mew potentially being a great rocker and spike on this team, very, very nice. It grabs great momentum for the squad, and is a great catch-all pivot into so many things, allowing Pokemon like Garchomp and Roaring Moon to come in for free and click buttons against opposing teams. So I think Mew's going to really serve a more defensive support role, but it's going to do so really well.
Speaking of defensive support role, we got Florges with the Bin Fat Wish Passes. Very Spadef bulky fairy type Pokemon. Good pairing on the team. Now he doesn't have a fairy resist yet outside of Steel Flygon, which is going to come regardless because he's part dragon type before he terrestrializes. But nonetheless, we have a very good fairy type. Some people hate Florges if it's not with Terra. It does get walled by steel types for sure, but it does still have powerful Moonblast, which is really nice. But it's a good fairy type, and it's good to get that done. Sometimes in draft, you have to kind of prioritize what's happening outside of your team within the draft, meaning that if you think that the fairies are going to start to go, you're not going to get a good one, you kind of got to pounce on it. I think that's what happened here with me. And then next we have Cyclizar, Terra Cap.
Good Cyclizar here. Now this gives Keegan some hazard removal he didn't have at this point, which is great. It gives him some regen, which is take. And as a Terra Captain, I think this thing's going to be very solid. If you guys keep up in the Showdown scene and all, and you've seen different tournaments from low-tier draft leagues, Cyclizar is actually one of the best Terra Captains in low-tier draft, where Cyclizar is one of the top-end picks. Offensively, Terra Normal makes this thing very strong. With Double Edge and Hyper Voice, it really does hit like a truck. Terra Fairy is obviously going to be a great typing as well, defensively and offensively. Keep in mind, this isn't just a rapid spin, bulky, U-turn mon. You typically see with that without Terra, but with Terra, this thing can shift gear and win the game very, very easily. It can even throat spray and win the game with some Hyper Voices. Has great offensive coverage. It's going to be a very solid Pokemon for Keegan here. I think this is a great Terra Captain pickup.
Very slept on mon for sure. Then we got Okidogi with the Blender Sprite. Love it. This is newer. We have Okidogi, the poison and fighting type Pokemon. Very nice to start off on round number 8 for Keegan. This Pokemon is able to facilitate some sweeps with that Cyclizar that Owen just talked about, being able to remove those rock types that want to come in on the stabs that want to be spammed by the Cyclizar. Rock types, steel types. I like the pairing a lot with these two offensively in general, which is really, really nice. It is a poison type that is touching the floor, which is very, very cool. It's able to really facilitate the rest of the team as well. This is a very bulky Pokemon, like I said. It's very, it does what it does best in regards to soak up hits and then deal damage, and having bulk up is really nice for some setup. It's not as fast as you would want it to be able to set up and win a game, but it does break really well, and it helps with getting Cyclizar up and going, which is a good pairing here. Next we got, what do you think, Ready Steel in Gen 9.
Really solid bulky steel. I like the hazard aspect again. The only issue with Registeel is again really big passivity, and I think Registeel took a big hit this generation. I actually really liked it in past generations, despite it being a little bit weaker. It could seismic toss, it could toxic, it lost those things this gen. So now you're really banking on Registeel's raw attack stats, which typically tend to not be great. It can T-Wave, it can also Iron Defense bomb. It's a good way of, getting past passivity and things like that. But in general, it's going to be a little bit more finicky to play with this generation, so I think Nate has to be very careful that his Registeel doesn't get bullied and set up on and kind of taken advantage of a little bit. But again, it also makes sense a lot for the team. I like the balance build that he's going for, and it looks like a team he's going to be pretty comfortable with. Really just kind of like Gen 6-7 draft with a Quaquaval and Kinglu up to this point.
And next thing we have is Palmot. Palmot is a Terra Captain. I saw this on my... Did it not show up?
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
Oh, okay. Let's see what happened. So Palmot is fantastic. Cheesecake. Oh, he said cheesecake. Yes, this is cheesecake.
Oh, yeah.
Cookie. I love this a lot. Funny times. So Palmot, very good Terra Captain. This Pokemon gets an exclusive move called Double Shock. And Double Shock basically is like Burn Up back in the past, where it would hit you with 120 base power electric type move, and then Burn Up, it's electric typing, which means it removes it. But when it's a Terra Captain, it terastallizes into an electric type. Not only does it get that boost for being the same type bonus for a Terra, it also doesn't burn out the Double Shock, which means you can keep spamming it, this is a super powerful Pokemon. It can also run things like Iron Fist boosted Ice Punches, which is fantastic coverage for it. It's got Mach Punch for priority. Very good Terra Captain, very powerful Terra Captain. I think this is a diamond in the rough, no pun intended, in regards to terastallization captains, and I think it's going to do really well this season. I think it's terrifying, so I think it's in good hands here with Marcus. They have a Goodra.
Big Goodra. I love Screamtail plus Goodra plus Clawzer. I think that's Screamtail being able to pass fatty wishes right into that, really keeping it nice and healthy and bulky, and allowing it to soak up hits and be that AV variant that it really loves running. But also Goodra got some great buffs in this most recent for this one, getting access to Scald, Knock Off, and getting Toxic back. All three of those things being great boons for this thing, making it a lot better than it was before, in my opinion. I really like this thing a lot. I drafted it in BBR last season before it got those things, and I had in GBU when it did have those things, and it was like night and day. It felt like a completely different Pokemon, and really was a solid pickup. So I think it's a great pickup here for Panther.
Yeah, Greymon that got a bunch of brand new toys. We have Slowking, which is a crazy pickup here. This is a very good defensive Pokemon, especially paired up with Excadrill. I think this is phenomenal. It does have an element that is interesting here. It has access to Chilly Reception, which in turn will bring up the snow, which will cancel out the sand that he has going on. But that doesn't mean he has to pigeonhole himself to being a sand team. He has this element to add theirs too, which gives it a defensive boost to Kyurem, which is interesting. So there's a bunch of things going on here. This is the epitome of a draft league team that is able to have not one thing that it does really well, but multiple things that it has an opportunity to do well for. So I think that Slowking is a really good pairing here. It's got a good alternative for the team, and that way we can get momentum for things like the Urshifu, for the Kyurem, and for the Gardevoir and the Excadrill. I think that that's a really cool element. Azelf. What do you think about Azelf on Amos team?
I love Azelf in general. I think it's a cool, immediately offensive Pokemon name. A lot of big balance-oriented things and slower picks and things like that. But Azelf is a Pokemon like we've kind of clicks a button. Very versatile too, as well. On top of being very strong physically and especially, it gets up nasty plots and win the game that way and try and set up if you find the right opportunity, or if Amo gets up screen somehow. It can stealth rock very freely. It can kaboom and just go explode and take something out with it, which is great. It's great with a Scarf too. I think that's something that Amel's team really struck with in the sense that he didn't have great choice Scarf Pokemon. So now Azelf is going to give him that. And I think it's a really important thing to plan out when you're drafting. Something I was talking with Kurt about recently. This is having a good Scarfer is big. So good pickup here for Amel. I like Azelf a lot.
Back speed kills. This is another one that have a bitch fit. This is probably the biggest snipe of my entire draft. I had to almost force myself to take Jolteon last and not get to lose it to Braden. So it sucks to kind of lose the mons that you had planned for. I thought Kleavor ran under the radar. I thought it was going to go a little bit earlier because of its broken Stone Axe move. Yes, it's not accurate, but it's just a move that's stabbed, that's boosted by sharpness, and it sets up stealth blocks for free. I think that's nuts for us. So I wanted to be able to have another reliable rocker, but it fits good on Obo's team, and I like the way my draft ended up going off. So it was made to happen. Kleavor is a fantastic breaker though, very good offensive Pokemon for him. It's a decent Scarfer, not a fast Scarfer, but it's a decent one. Him to be able to come in and get those strong moves off. U-turn for stab is fantastic. Has access to Defog if he wants to run that. He also has access to U-turn, which is fantastic. It's a great pick. Great offensive Pokemon with the Kleavor here. Oh, you know this one.
Big Alamamamala. Now this is a great up for Del, giving him his bulky water, giving him wish. Latias, all these. There's something that Marcus mentioned in the draft chat that I didn't kind of realize until looking at his team, which I really liked at this point, is all of his guys did not appreciate Ice types minus Heatran. So it really takes a lot of pressure off of Heatran to deal with the 73 ice weaknesses that Del had otherwise. So I like the Aloe pickup right here. Again, a little bit more of a passive Pokemon, but I think if you use it correctly and you're kind of just turning around using it as a pivot, opposed to Wish passing all of the time, playing a little bit more passively with it, you're going to see a lot of success. I also really like Healing Wish on Aloe. I think it's something that people are a little bit more afraid to run, because, like, why do that when you can Wish? But still a great Pokemon.
We have Muck here. This is a role picker here. We have a ground and poison type Pokemon that's helping them deal with fairy types, which is really cool. It's also helping them deal with grass type Pokemon that his team otherwise doesn't really like that much outside of Cinderace, which is great. But this Pokemon having access to Toxic Spikes this generation is really nice. Things like Knockoff has good coverage in elemental punches. Good low tier Pokemon. This is a good low tier poison type that if you're in a scramble for a poison type that's touching the floor to set up Toxic Spikes yourself is really, really nice for the team. It's a good defensive typing. Poison is a very underrated defensive typing in my personal opinion. Only having weaknesses to Psychic and Ground and having key resistances like Fairy is fantastic. So Muck is a good pickup here for this team. I like Muck alive drafted. I think it's great. What do you think about Toedscruel here?
Big Toedscruel here for Tira. I think Tira really wanted some in that aspect. It does also give him more hazard. Great. Having multiple spikers and multiple rockers always really helps out in the team. Pigeon with bringing Sandy Shocks as a spiker and a rocker every single week. Now, my Cinemite is a little bit annoying in that regards, in the sense that, like, you can't always get off the spikes and the rocks and the spores that you want, but it also is a plus side to ignorability. So spore, even if it's airable, and you can spore it and to go ahead and threatening out with an earth power and then getting off a spin in that regard. So it does have some plus sides and some upsides. Mediocre Pokemon, but it does some good to Tiro's team. Also gives them a ground resistance.
Speaking of grounds, we have Mamoswine, fantastic Pokemon. This mon is so fucking good. And this is another victim of new toy syndrome. This mon falling to the 8th round is a fucking crime. Mamoswine's a fantastic Pokemon with dual stabs that are basically unresisted. Offensively, Ice and Ground is an incredible combination together. And Ice Shard for priority. It's an offensive Pokemon like a set of Stealth Rocks, which is really cool. It can be deceptively bulky with things like an Assault Vest to just be an all-out attacker Pokemon, or things like Life Orb or just Choice Band. This mon hits incredibly hard. It's a very good Pokemon to step on here to break teams down, which is fantastic for grading. Next up we have is Arcanine Hisui, which is my Pokemon. Now this is my replacement for Kleavor. This is a Pokemon that I wanted to come in offensively to set up Stealth Rock, and ended up working out a little bit better because I wanted to get a Fairy Killer. Fairy types are a little bit scary for me as well too. My only resist is Corviknight, and I'm putting a lot of resistances on Corviknight's back, so I wanted to kind of alleviate the pressure a little bit and bring in Arcanine and have an incredible breaker with access to Rock Head as an ability, plus stab, head smashes, and flare blitzes. Not having to take that recoil damage on such powerful attacks is nuts. Extreme Speed for priority, has access to Morning Sun for recovery, and the aforementioned Stealth Rock, which is something that I really wanted for my team. And then you got your Shaman. What's your Shaman for one?
Ground resist. I didn't have one up to this point, so getting a ground resist was really yep, point. I also really want something else to deal with bulky waters. So right now, Iron Hands and waters that get scald, I don't really want to switch Iron Hands in on, because it gives them 2 opportunities to scald burn me potentially, and that makes my Iron Hands not very good anymore. So having a great water check, a great ground check is what Shaman is going to offer for this team in particular. I also, again, like Healing Wish a lot. I'm a big Healing Wish fan. It's one of my favorite moves in the game. I think it's incredibly valuable, especially when I have bulky Pokemon without recovery, things like Crocodile, things like Iron Hands, things like Tentacruel even. Really appreciate potentially being a Healing Wish into even Pokemon like Deoxys. Give them a second life, man, for free. I don't have to recover on my Deoxys because I have my Shaman healing, wishing them up. I can also drop leech seeds and chip things down that way. I can also be offensive with Seed Flare, Air/Earth Power, Dazzling Gleam type coverage, and just again be a very solid Pokemon. I'm a big Shaman stan. I drafted everywhere, and I think it fits the team well.
And we have Grass types galore. Electro Hisui, fantastic Pokemon, very fast, muy rápido with 150 speed. Grass and Electric is near perfect coverage. There are some Dragon types that can come in on Hisui and Electro pretty easily, but for the most part, having a Pokemon that can come in and revenge kill the vast majority of teams, I think is fantastic. A great solid pick for this thing. Very fast Pokemon with Taunt, which is nice for pivot momentum. It still gets Boom if he wants to do that, so Electro Hisui is a really good Pokemon to just come on in and just soak up hits if it needs to. So I think that this is a good pickup to be able to just come on in and get revenge teams, which is fantastic for it. So good pickup here by the Cotswold Whimsicots. And what do you think about Muck Alola here on this one?
Really solid pickup here for John. I like the Guarded Poison was obviously a big pickup for him. Great make T-spikes, things like that. Also gives him another Fairy Switch, and I know this is part Dark type, but it's not like Muck Alola doesn't resist Fairy type attacks coming into it with this crazy Spadessa. Great with an AV. Also gives him a Ghost resist that is not Chi-Yu. Again, taking pressure off of that thing. We don't want to use our Chi-Yu defensively, like at all. I really don't think it's a great idea. And I'm sure John didn't either, and that's why he ended up picking up Muck here. Really does a lot for the team. Is going to make him give him another really solid supporting piece, bulky and offensively with Curse, and just being a big nuisance. But that said, since you're gonna do the last pick of the round, I do want to say I check out for the day. I'm gonna go out to lunch with the family and stuff like that, so I gotta go get ready for the day. I appreciate you guys having me on. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the draft, and I will see you all later. Do you have a good rest of the stream? Adios.
Hey, thanks, bro. Appreciate you. That's the exit for OG Albina. He's got to go. Family comes first. That's always the motto. So you got me for the rest of it, guys. We have round number 9. We're gonna start zooming, guys, because we're gonna start getting some bullet points on. I'm gonna get my 2 thoughts on every single matchup and every single team, and then we'll just go from there. So if we're gonna go ahead and finish out round number 8, moving on here. So we have the very last pick of the draft, the last pick of this round for the Copenhagen Gallades. We have Iron Crown, new toy. We have the Psychic and Steel type Pokemon. This is the special version of Metagross, in my personal opinion. Having access to things like Volt Switch is nice for it. If he wants to go Psychic Spam, maybe with the Necrozma paired up with this thing, this is really cool. Has access to things like Expanding Force. It's got good setup in Calm Mind and Swords Dance. With Booster Energy, this could be a really good setup sweeper in draft in particular. It gives him a Steel type, which he didn't have otherwise before, which is very important in my personal opinion for all drafts. I think it's really, really cool. So Iron Crown coming this late is a new toy that he gets to play with, which is fantastic. He's gonna round up in the beginning of round number 9. We have Mienshao, which, fun fact, is actually a huge snipe to the vast majority of the coaches. This Pokemon is very, very good. Mienshao is a phenomenal fighting type Pokemon that's able to come on in and just get a hit off, and with Regenerator, remove whatever chip damage it has from hazards or from Life Orb, which is a cool little element for it. It can't really soak up hits because it's not very defensive in general with the Mienshao, so it's able to just mostly be an offensive Pokemon, but being able to get rid of that chip damage and live some hits to be able to dish off more damage, I think is fantastic for Mienshao. And then we have Slowbro. Slowbro is a very bulky Pokemon that John himself is very, very accustomed to using. He has drafted Slowbro very often, and it doesn't have chilly reception, just like how the Slowking brothers do, but it still is able to come on in, soak up hits, and then switch out with Regenerator. Very bulky water and psychic type Pokemon with Gen 1 coverage. It has a Flamethrower for the Steel types, which is really nice, as well as the Grass type, so it's able to facilitate itself if it needs to, but it's able to really soak up hits and inhibit the rest of the team, which is great for John's team. I like this pick a lot. He's very comfortable with it. I talk about comfort picks all the time. Very important in drafts, I think. Ceruledge comes up. Ceruledge for the Cotswold Whimsicots. Ceruledge is a fire and ghost type Pokemon that fits in really well with this team. I'm becoming very big on the screen, so I'm gonna reduce myself a little bit as the rounds go on. You're gonna start to notice that the teams are coming right behind me. So now Ceruledge is coming up and being a very good offensive piece for this team. Having to set up bulk ups and having priority in Shadow Sneak is great. Bitter Blade is a signature move that it has this fire type that is able to help heal 50% of the damage that it dishes out, which makes it kind of tough to deal with sometimes. With heavy duty boots, this mon is a great breaker and it's able to really kill those fairy types. A very strong fairy type does really well against this team. It's able to spam a Specs Moonblast, and his steel type is King Gambit with his part dark, which is not really wanted for the most part for this team. So this being able to kill those fairies is really good for it. And then Gengar shows up. I actually talked to I was in call with Owen when he wanted to pick this pick. It was either going to be this or Hisui and Zoroark. He ended up going with Gengar because of the comfort level of it, because Gengar is able to come in and be that fairy killer that he wanted to talk about with the Tentacruel, but this is able to help him out just a little bit more with those fairy types, which is fantastic. Gengar is one of those Pokemon that's able to come on in and do what it does in the past, right? It spams Shadow Balls, it spams the Sludge Bombs, and it fills out a good speed tier for him. So it's another comfort pick for him, and it does what it needed to do, which is kill fairies, which is going to come on in on that Iron Hands and the Crocodile, and is very good for his team. Fantastic pick. Now I picked Skuntank. I think Skuntank is phenomenal. I like Skuntank a lot. The reason I like Skuntank is because it was buffed this generation, giving it knockoff and Toxic Spikes. It's a very underrated Pokemon. It was only 4 points, so I found it with extreme value. It's a poison type that is touching the floor and is able to get those Toxic Spikes up for my team. Having priority in Sucker Punch is also really, really cool. It did lose Defog, which is something niche that you can run like in Generation 8, but for the most part, it didn't always have the opportunity to fit it. So, you know, that kind of is what it is, but for the most part, this Pokemon's gonna do what it does best, which is come on in, soak up hits, and then threaten something that's a little bit slower. It's a very good value pick in my personal opinion. Yanmega shows up next. We have Yanmega for the James River Jolteons. This mon is super fucking good, man. This is the Terra Captain. We have Bug and Fire. This mon is very scary. Steel types are the ones that want to come in on Yanmega if it doesn't have Tinted Lens. If it wanted to run Speed Boost 1 week, it could do Terra Fire and smoke your entire team, because now its resistances that it has from its dual stab gets mitigated from the fire typing, which is really cool for those steel types. So Yanmega all of a sudden has become very fucking scary. We borderline banned this from being Terra'd, so the fact that it was picked up here on this team is great for Champion Braden. I'm very scared, very terrified of this mon. A lot of versatility to it. Now we have more Terra Captains that are starting to show up. We have the Braviary, Hisuian Braviary, that's going to be able to Terra into the flying and to the electric typing, which is really cool for it. This Pokemon is able to remove a lot of the weaknesses that it has with the electric typing, which is fantastic. And it's also able to boost those hurricanes from the Tinted Lens coming off of Braviary Hisui, which is really, really nice. Having an exclusive Psychic type move able to boost its speed makes this a very threatening setup sweeper, and it could be a mon that really helps run away with the game. Hisuian Braviary was borderline as well. Some people think that it's too much with Terra. We thought it was okay. You could definitely tell the quality of the coaches that we have, because they picked up the Pokemon that were borderline unable to Terra in other leagues, and we let them go here, and they were all picked up. And Hisuian Braviary is one of those mons that we're like, we'll see, and it did get picked up, so we'll see if it ends up biting us in the butt. You never know until you try, right? So we have Thundurus Incarnate showing up here next. Thundurus Incarnate is a fantastic electric and flying type Pokemon that is able to really facilitate a team with Prankster. Having Prankster Thunderwaves, Prankster Taunts is really, really nice. It could be really, really tough to deal with if you want to go for a bulky offensive set with Bulk Up. It's really crazy. I think this also got Supercell Slam, which isn't that great if you have a ground type that comes every single week, but it does have more of a physical. It has more of an option to run for physical offense on an electric type, which is really cool for Thundurus. But it's a good speed stat here for Aster. It's able to fill in that 111, which is 110 or 111, which is really good for it. And a very good glue piece mod to help him deal with those pesky water types that are really, really hindering this team for the most part. Now we have Hisuian Quillfish, the Eviolite Pokemon that is able to literally chew up hits. Dark and Poison is great defensively. Pair that up with an Eviolite, this becomes crazy bulky. They gave it Pain Split back, which is what Quillfish had prior, before Hisui, but they gave it 2 Quillfish, which is fantastic for it. It gives it a little bit of sense of recovery, which is really nice for it, having access to set up both spikes, Toxic Spikes and regular spikes, longevity in the Pain Split, as well as Flip Turn for momentum to be able to chew up a hit and get in the scary mons like the Iron Boulder or the Zapdos is great for the Quillfish. So it's a good facilitator for the rest of his offense, which I like a lot. Tornadus is showing up, the second genie of the round. We have the pure flying type, also with Prankster having access to Bleak Windstorm and with Hurricane again for that awesome offensive prowess for the flying typing, pure flying typing by the way. It has access to have great coverage with things like Superpower, which is great knockoff for utility, U-turn for momentum, great mon overall. It fills it in a really, really good speed stat. Sometimes if he doesn't want to bring in the Iron Moth, he can also bring in the Tornadus, which is really good for it. Also gives him Defog, defog on a mon that could run defog each and every week. Right now, he doesn't really have great removal outside of the best remover in the game, which is the Great Tusk. I'm personally one person that wants to prioritize removal. I'm not on the just run boots train. I just think that it eliminates the opportunity to run anything else, like a Choice Scarf, which is an elite item, Life Orb. You have to run boots, right? So they have more opportunity to be able to remove hazards. I think is fantastic. So very good on a mon like this, and I think it fits on this team really, really well. And then we have Lilligant Hisui. This is another Pokemon that Emil is very, very comfortable with. He's used it in the past and he's very good with it. Very, very, very good with it. It's a grass and fighting type Pokemon and has access to Victory Dance, which is a broken move, which is basically physical Quiver Dance. And it's able to pick up and run away with teams, which is crazy. This Pokemon is very, very strong. And there's a couple different things that could facilitate a setup for Lilligant. It's able to get rid of those water types that both the Weavile and the Landers don't really want to deal with, and allows the Araquanid to be able to spam those moves, which is fantastic for it. So I think it's a good Pokemon to be able to facilitate the rest of the offense, which is really good, and it allows more offensive pieces. He's got some bulk onto him, so now he's starting to stack things on, which is really good for his team. Smeargle comes in with 2 points. Probably should have been 3. Honestly, it doesn't seem like much, but value at 2 points. I think it's really, really good. Smeargle is fantastic in regards to having the sketch move, that's able to give it any move that it wants. On Smeargle specifically, we did ban Revival Blessing, and we banned Shed Tail, so it cannot run those 2 moves. This does have a comp, and also 3 with Last Respects. It cannot run Last Respects. It cannot learn Shed Tail, and it cannot learn Revival Blessing. Even though it does have the capability to do so, it is complex banned from running those 3 moves. Viz does know that, just so you guys are aware, so make sure you keep that in mind. So otherwise, it can run anything that it wants. It can run Sticky Web, it can run a status move, which is really cool, Momentum if it wants to be a lead. It's a really good glue piece to be able to do what it needs to do for the given matchup, which is kind of nice. Then we got Monch. Monch shows up, which is I love Monch so much. Monch is a fantastic Pokemon. Grass and electric type, being able to eliminate any kind of water type in existence is fantastic for this team. I think it's a good little pairing up, even though he does have grass on the Ogerpon and Grass Terra on the Talonflame. I think that this Pokemon still fits really, really well on his team, in my personal opinion. So I think that Rotom is going to be a good piece to get rid of those water types and those ground types for the team. And Rotom is just a very good Pokemon, especially since they gave a Pain Split back. Gives a little bit more longevity, which is really, really nice. We got Fortress rolling up. Fortress is a Steel and Bug type Pokemon that has a Rapid Spin and Spikes and Stealth Rocks. This is Hazards.exe, and it finally gives a Steel type for CB Marcus, which is really cool. Having access to something like the Volt Switch as well is very, very nice. Volt Switch paired off with the Pokemon that is very, very slow to facilitate the rest of his team is really, really cool. I think Fortress is awesome. Very good Steel type Pokemon, very slept on. Giving access to Body Press 2 as well this generation is very nice. Grafaiai, I think, is here for a grounded Poison type. Draft League player recognized that grounded Poison type is very good because Toxic Spice is overpowered, which I think is great Pokemon here. It's a good speed stat. It does have Prankster for some Prankster shenanigans for some priority, which is really cool. It could run some Unburdened sets with Swords Dance, which could be very underrated. I think that with this mon, if you can facilitate some screens maybe and get this thing nice and bulky, set up a Swords Dance, pop whatever item he has, be double speed, and then just run away with the game, even though it isn't naturally very strong. Grafaiai nonetheless could be very, very good. I think it's fantastic. And then the last pick, we have Iron Jugu for round number 9. Iron Jugulis, we have the Dark and Flying type Pokemon. This Pokemon is nuts. It's a good Dark type Pokemon to fit in on this team. With Booster Energy, has a great coverage. Hydreigon on steroids. It does have a little bit less of a BST. I think it's 590 or 570, one of the two, versus Hydreigon 600. So it's not that good in that regard, but it doesn't have Roost as well, but it does have U-Turn for some pivot momentum, and Coverage.exe plus Booster Energy is always really, really nice to run away with the matchup. Looking at your guys' comments, guys, thanks guys for hanging out. I saw there was something that said, where's Walking Wake? Fun fact, Walking Wake was not drafted, which is crazy. Walking Wake is indeed still available, which is nuts. Coaches do still have transactions this entire season. They have 5 for the season to be able to use up until week number 5 or 6, if I remember correctly. Towards the middle of the season is where they can make changes. So you may see your Walking Wake, you never know. But this is the team. that was the end for some of the coaches. We're gonna go to round number 10, which is going to be the very end of a lot of people's drafts. So I'm sure that a lot of big holes that needed to be filled are gonna be filled out here. So let's just hop right on into it, team. Let's get it. Here we go. We have Palossand to start our round number 10. Very good ground type Pokemon, ground and ghost. Now he has 2 ghost types. If he does not want rapid spin, we have a ghost.exe. Palossand is a very good stealth rocker. Got reliable recovery and shore up, which is nice. Very good defensive Pokemon and a very good ground type, which up to this point he didn't have. Ground type is almost essential in each and every draft. So I think that Palossand coming in is a good low tier ground type that really fits his team very, very well. Now we have Sinistcha. Sinistcha is a pretty cool Pokemon. It's got potential. None of us really know what it could do yet because there hasn't been any kind of significant wave in draft with Sinistcha, but it does have some cool tools, man. It's got things like the strength sap. Matcha Gacha is really cool, being able to gain that recovery every time you click your stab. That's really nice. But strength sap pairing off with the ghost typing is really cool. It's a very good defensive piece, a very deceptively bulky Pokemon. So I'm curious to see how it performs. I haven't seen it really do much at all since its release, so I'm curious to see if Nate can make it work because I'm very intrigued with that one in general. Porygon, and it looks like we have a note from Marcus. He put on GOAT on there. This is Marcus's Pokemon, so I'm not surprised that that's on there. The greatest of all time, Porygon. This is 1 point Porygon. Can run Eviolite, very bulky Pokemon that has access to recover. It lost Teleport, which is unfortunate for it. That was one of the biggest niches to even allowing this thing in the first place, or not allowing, to basically allow it on your team, I guess, right? So you can come on in, soak up a hit as a normal type and only being weak to fighting. Click a recover button or click teleport, which is really cool. It's still able to facilitate a little bit of offense with download, which is interesting. But you know, for the most part, it's Porygon. Greatest of all time, question mark. But Porygon's still a cool Pokemon. We have in our trend of Eviolite, normal type Pokemon. Dunsparce is really cool. Dunsparce holding the Eviolite is actually deceptively bulky. Very good, very good Pokemon here to round out the draft. He now has a bulky normal type that he didn't have before. Dunsparce is one of those Pokemon that can just chew up hits, set up Stealth Rock, and laugh in your face. And just mess your girl up and come back home, take a nap, make a sandwich. This mon's so bulky, which is so crazy. And it could be pretty strong, depending on how you run it, right? So being able to just soak up hits, roost them off, and set up Stealth Rock is really, really cool. I've seen people 1v1 a Dragapult with the Dunsparce, so we'll see how in Panther's hands, I'm sure he can make it work. Houndstone is here to round off Viz's draft. I almost called him the Miz. I was watching WWE earlier. And so it looks like there's a slide mishap. This is not his last Pokemon. I spoiled it. But this is going to be the Terra Captain for Viz. Houndstone is the Fairy and the Ghost typing, which is very good for it. You do kind of see Houndstone coming each and every week. Houndstone is a phenomenal sweeper. It did lose access to Last Respects because we have banned it for the BBR, but it did gain access to Poltergeist, so now has a very powerful ghost type stab, assuming that the opponent is holding an item. So Houndstone can be pretty bulky, making it more defensive with the fairy typing. With Fluffy, this Pokemon is very strong, so don't sleep on Houndstone in defensive sets outside of sweeping sets, which is really cool for it. And then now we have to talk about this guy. We gotta talk about Amel's pick. We have fucking Oshawott. We thought to ourselves, damn, Amel's drafting a very good team. So what's going on here? He drafts Oshawott, which is interesting. Oshawott's a phenomenal Pokemon. No, it's not. I can't. I can't do it. It's an Oshawott because he has 1 point left over. And this is Amel. Can we get Oshawott, can we spam Oshawott in the chat? Just because Oshawott made it on the team. He's like the little brother that your parents told you to come to the movies, and he has to be there in the back. You buy him a big popcorn and a candy, and he sits in the back of the movie theater and he doesn't bother you, right? So little brother's here to participate. Fucking emo, dude. Oshawott on the team, bro. We have Dashman. Dashman's here with the Morpeko United. You'll love to see it. Oh, actually, fun fact, on general, Lechonk moved up to 2 points. because of Amel. Anyway, he drafted Oshawott, and I'm terrified of him having Oshawott. I already know he's scheming something. Dachshund's rolled up here. We have a fairy type that is able to pass wishes. Having an immunity to fire types is actually kind of cool with its ability, which is fantastic. But this Pokemon isn't the strongest, but it is deceptively fast with base 95 speed. Dachshund's one of those Pokemon that is a low tier fairy that can do something. I think that it's done really well in the hands of people like John Jr. So that's really, really cool for Dachshund, which is fantastic. So it's a low tier fairy. He didn't have one prior. He got one now. He does have Terra Fairy Belly Bolt, but now he has a fairy type to rock with from the first time it switches in. Hitmontop, baby. Hitmontop the GOAT. Can we just like marinate on his glory? I think that Hitmontop is very underrated. Running an Assault Vest and just having an Intimidate ability, fantastic for some bulk. It got Triple Axle back, which is cool. They didn't give him Swords Dance, which is quite frustrating. They gave Swords Dance this gen to Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan, and they just said, fuck you, Hitmontop, you don't get it, which is interesting. Don't know why. I guess that'd be too much with like Swords Dance plus Mach Punch, which I think makes sense on Game Freak's part, but it would be cool to see it happen. Nonetheless, I don't think that it got knockoff either, which both Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan got, which is unfortunate, but you know, it's still Hitmontop and does Hitmontop things, or removes hazards, soaks up hits, and then is a good support mon for the team. Here's what I talked about earlier with the grass typing for my Jolteon. My guy drafted Quagsire, which now, if with the electric typing is neutral, Quagsire can be very, very bulky and very hard to deal with. I respected the Quagsire enough to make my Jolteon Terra Grass. Yes, Aster is the reason my Jolteon is Terra Grass. Plus Terra Ice. Very good, deceptively bulky Pokemon. Quagsire is very good at what it does. It's an unaware wall that comes on in and just laughs in your face, sets up hazards, and dips. Is it very good and could be passive? Yes. I still think that in the right hands, it's very terrifying. Aster being one of them. I think that this Pokemon is kind of crazy in Aster's hands. So hopefully not, because he's one of my opponents. Spoiler, so we'll see how he does. Ursaring, we have the bear. So many bears. We have both Ursalunas drafted. We got Snorlax drafted. And now we got Ursaring drafted. It's a good day for bear Pokemon. This is an Eviolite normal type. This is the Eviolite normal type. Not the fucking Porygon. Not the fucking Dunsparce. Not Dunsparce. The Dunsparce. Ursaring, Eviolite, bulky, guts. This mon hits like a truck. Very good coverage, access to Swords Dance for setting up. Sleep Talk sets, very obnoxious to deal with. This Pokemon is rough. It's tough. It soaks up hits and then it dishes them back very, very hard. I like Ursaring a lot. I think it's very underrated in draft. I think it's a very good end-all be-all normal type. And Tiro is scary, man. This Pokemon is so nuts. Dusknoir, baby, we have the ghost type Pokemon to help him block hazards. This is a big budget pick for him. It does have access to Poltergeist, which is really cool. Very good support Pokemon. It has access to Trick Room if you wanted to do that. Taunt to be able to stop some setup shenanigans or some hazards. But it looks like spin blocking was the biggest thing for him. He has hazard stack in the Glimmora. So being able to have a Pokemon that can block spin, which is really cool, to pair off with the Hatterene, in case he's unable to keep, so he can keep the hazards off of his side of the field and maintain them on his, which is really good. Good aspect here. Dusknoir is a very sleeper pick, I think. Now we have Baxcalibur. I am unbiasedly going to say this is probably the best team I have ever drafted. Pats on back. I like this team a lot. We got Baxcalibur here. Baxcalibur is an Ice and Dragon type Pokemon that has access to an ability called Thermal Exchange. If you have a fire type move and you try to hit me with it, it's gonna boost my attack by 1, and it's a physical attacker that cannot be burned. It's a free Scald Switch in being a Dragon type. It's a phenomenal Pokemon to just come on in with Aurora Veil and then the boost from the snow on the defensive side and being able to set up more opportunity to get that Dragon Dance up. I think this team is fantastic. Yes, famous last word, probably. I'm not gonna make any promises, but the goal is playoffs. refreshed, man. I haven't played in a long time. I've taken my time off content, and so being able to come back in with a team like this, I am so proud of what we were able to come up with, and I think that this team is by far one of the best I've ever done, and I'm very excited to play with it this season. Then we got Volbeat, which is a very underrated Pokemon. It's a good utility mon for Owen. I honestly don't really know what Volbeat does. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I don't know the difference between Volbeat and Illuminise. I think that this mon has some potential in the hands of Owen. I can't tell you much about it, team. I don't know what this thing does. In fact, I didn't even know this fucking Pokemon was in the game until we were tiering. So TBD, make sure you watch this draft analysis to give you a little bit more of a 411 on it, but I have no idea what this fucking Pokemon does. Y'all can roast me in the chat, but like I don't know this is not a Pokemon. next pick. Lycanroc, midday form. So this is the faster version. It has access to Sand Rush if he wants to run that. But this is a Pokemon that's going to be giving him some priority in Excel Rock. It's got good coverage. It doesn't have tough claws like it's the fucking orange one does. I don't remember what that form's called, but it doesn't have tough claws, so it doesn't get the boost from like the crunches and the close combats that make contact. But nonetheless, it's still a very fast, cleaner Pokemon, which is really nice. It's a good aspect to it, which is fantastic. So I think it's going to be really good in the hands of Matt. It's a very fast Pokemon that's able to clean up the game, which is great. This is funny. This is John's pick. We have Brambleghast. Brambleghast is a Pokemon that I did not expect John to pick, because Brambleghast is a mon that I think that he roasted it when they were playing Overwatch or some shit. They were saying that this is a bad Pokemon, bad design, but he does also admit that this is a Pokemon that it has got some value to it. With the Ghost type, it's able to come on in and block Rapid Spin. It's also able to spin on its own. Having access to Poltergeist is also really nice for an offensive prowess. Wind Rider is a cool ability, being able to be immune as a grass type to all wind type moves like Hurricane, Air Slash, things of that nature. And also giving it a boost in speed. Not only immunity, but a boost in speed. Yeah, Miguel, I think Brambleghast is go. It's a very good Pokemon. Very frail. It does have Strain Sap though, so it can have some potential. I think this mon, John thrashed on it, but I think he recognizes what the potential for this Pokemon can be. He gives us the sad face. Miss Magius, we have Discount Fluttermane. Miss Magius with the Levitate ability is actually kind of nice, base 105 speed. Very deceptively fast, and it outspeeds some very prominent Pokemon in the metagame, and especially the prominent Pokemon that have been drafted. Now teams are starting to really realize where the speed tiers lie, and they want to kind of climb up above that, right? So that way they're able to take advantage of the matchup, and there's some really great coverage that Miss Magius can run, which is fantastic. I think I like that Pokemon. This Pokemon just fits really well balanced. Then we have Munchlax. Munchlax is very good for this team. Munchlax is going to be another bulky normal type, because this is just the freaking theme going on right now, which is bulky normal types with Eviolite. Sokapits has thick fat, rest talk. That's what Munchlax does, and spreads paralysis with the body slam. That's really all I really need to know about this Pokemon. Very bulky type, very bulky normal type, which is great. Now we got the very tail end of this is round. I think this is round 12. There's only quite a few, so we'll just kind of shuffle through these here, guys. This next pick that we have is with the James River Jolteons. We have Lurantis. Lurantis does not have Stellar Terra. It's just the standard contrary Lurantis. It does have access to Defog, which is kind of cool for it. Lurantis is a really solid Pokemon to be able to come on in and soak up some ground type hits. It has access to Superpower now, which is cool. So Lurantis is nice. We'll see how that works out. Swalot, I don't think Swalot is very good, but hey, T-Row got him for a discounted price, which is good. It's a grounded poison type Pokemon. It's able to set up toxic spikes. I personally am a Muck fan. I don't think Swalot is that great, but it does fit on this team really, really well. It's able to come in on those fairy types that kind of takes that roll off of Metagross, which is fantastic. But it's a good overall Pokemon to be able to kind of glue this thing together, get himself a grounded poison type. Greedent comes up next. We have a bulky normal. Greedent is the truth. I think Greedent is great. Swords Dance sets, Citrus Berry Stuffed Cheek sets makes this very, very bulky. Rest Talk sets if he wants to run things like that. Very good Pokemon to be able to knock off items. Has Super Fang. Very good, very bulky normal type. I think this is a very good low tier normal type, and it fits well on this team. And then we spoiled this before. We have Wugtrio. Wugtrio actually was on this team. There was a little bit of a slide error there with Viz's stuff. Wugtrio is actually on Dell's team as a fast normal type and is a 1-pointer. That's all we got with Wugtrio. Fast water, and it clicks buttons with water type moves. Mischievous is actually really good value here. Mischievous is one of those Pokemon that is able to come in on those ground type hits with his ability and levitate to be immune to him, and it has pain split now. With Eviolite, this actually becomes deceptively bulky. They also buffed it by giving us some draining kiss shenanigans. So Mischievous is underrated. Now, I don't think it's going to come very often, but it can be pretty niche in some matchups, which is really cool. Pikachu, fantastic Pokemon for 1 point. With the Light Ball, this thing hits like an absolute truck. Fun fact, a Thunderbolt from a Pikachu is actually stronger than Thundurus Therian, which is crazy with the Light Ball. Very strong Pokemon, very frail. They got rid of its extreme speed, which was kind of niche for Pikachu, but it's able to have some good coverage with Grass Knot and the Surf for ground types. It's a good wall breaker. Ironically enough, it can't take any hits, but it can for sure dish it out. I think that Pikachu's a solid 1 point pick. And then we have Cloyster here, which is an interesting pickup. It's I don't know if he drafted it because he thought I still had Rapid Spin. Not entirely sure here, but Cloyster is a very good Pokemon of what it always has done, which is Shell Smash and win a game. That's usually what Cloyster does. Fantastic Ice and Water type Pokemon. It could also be very bulky, which is with some, very good physically defensive bulk and some priority in Ice Shard. This Pokemon is got some potential, honestly, but it really only just wants to come on in for the most part. Set up a Shell Smash, win the game. That's what Cloyster does, and it does it very well. That is going to be the draft team. That's the last pick of the Season 7 of the BBR. Thanks so much for coming on in, team. I really do appreciate everything. For me and OG Albina, thank you so much for tuning on in. For those who left the like on the stream, I salute you. Thank you so very much. It helps out the channel a lot, especially since it's been dead. I took this long break for a very long time. So you leaving a like really does go a long way. It helps me revive the channel, bring my algorithm back up, because I'm going to come back, guys. We're coming back full swing. The BBR is back, baby. If you haven't already, down in the description below will be a link to the Discord server. Please hop on in there. If you have Discord and have a Discord account, we'll welcome you in with open arms. We'll have things like pick'ems. You'll be able to interact with all the coaches. There's a massive community in here. I would like to think that the BBR has some pretty established sound feet into the ground and landscape of Draft League. So you are definitely in for a treat. I am very much so excited for it. I am your owner, commissioner of the BreedGX Battle Royale. I really do appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining us this, and if it's the evening now for you guys in the East Coast, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Don't really have much else, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys are psyched for a huge season. Draft analysis will go up today or tomorrow. We had a little bit of leeway with our coaches. They can choose that flexibility, but expect all of the draft analysis videos for all the coaches talking about what they drafted, why they drafted it, to be up by the latest tomorrow. Some have today, some have tomorrow. Keep your eyes out. Join the Discord server. Get yourself a role. That way you can get pinged and notified when your favorite coach posts their content. Without further ado, I'm gonna get up out of your hair. Thank you so much for joining me today. For me and OG Albina, Owen, my dear friend, and the rest of the Eggmans and the coaches in the BBR, thank you so much. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great rest of your day, and above all else, be nice. Peace. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for joining in. We'll see you guys soon. We'll talk to you in the Discord server. Take care, y'all. Mucho amor.